right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Goffstown School Board meeting. I call the meeting to order at 6:01. Let's rise and say the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Do we have correspondence tonight?
We do have correspondence. One thing that I would share this evening is from Health Trust. Health Trust is the company that we get all of our health insurance for all of our employees from. You've likely heard some of the impact from School Care, which is another organization that provides health insurance to school districts and some municipalities. School districts such as Concord and some other districts have had large increases, the equivalent of about 1.5 months of premiums that they've received bills for. So I wanted to circulate this from Health Trust. There are two different kinds of risk pools, and the type of risk pool that Health Trust is, they do not increase the coverage or the premiums if they have increased needs. So that's a non-assessable coverage. I just wanted to share this because we are not at risk of having an unexpected $1 million+ health insurance charge that we're not anticipating. The poor city of Claremont, they're already dealing with enough. They got hit with the School Care increase on top of it. So I just wanted to reassure the board that Health Trust is fine, that we're not having the same issues, and the communication's in here.
Great, thank you.
It looked like there were a bunch of towns that got hit with like really big numbers.
I think all School Care districts got hit with an increase because they had to build their reserve back up. And this communication from Health Trust is pretty well done. It actually explains the whole process. And because Health Trust is a non-assessable entity, that's not how they function according to their bylaws. So you can take a look at it, but health insurance is such an incredibly expensive, unpredictable entity for us. And as you'll hear this evening, one of the most significant drivers of our cost increases for FY27. So more to come, but at least for now, during the FY26 school year, we will not receive any additional premium increases that we're not expecting.
Thank you. All right, do we have public comment? I see no public comment, so we'll move on. We need to approve our meeting minutes from September 8th. Did everybody have a chance to look at them? Anybody see anything? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the meeting minutes as presented for September 8th.
All right, by Caroline, do I have a second by Shane? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. All right, so we're just going to do a quick reports update. We have financing. Doug?
Great, thanks. Yeah, so the only thing we have on tonight, except for the budget later on, is the manifest.
Yep.
So the manifest goes from August 27th through September 29th, has a total amount of $4,145,972.29. There were 2 pay runs during that time, and so for payroll, taxes, and benefits, combined of $2,991,311.78, where $1,495,863 was directly at payroll, $455,440 were payroll taxes, $708,357 went for health and dental towards Health Trust, $283,669 went to New Hampshire Retirement System. So the next bucket that we tend to talk about is special education. They had a total of $297,607.59. Some key ones here were Durham School Services for in-district and out-of-district transportation, $86,489. Seven Hills, which provides out-of-district services, $61,190. Lighthouse Schools, again, out-of-district services, $36,063. Regional Services, out-of-district services as well, $34,585. And Crest Collaborative, which is out-of-district tuition, $24,066. Next area is general expenses, which had a total of $684,635.80. Larger ones on there were the SAU 19, or Goffstown's share of that assessment, $227,342. Goffstown Truck Center for regular ed transportation, $155,042. KS State Bank for student laptop lease, $117,096. Eversource for electricity, $28,578. As well as Apple for iPads, $22,248. Lastly, we have food service. They had one payment to a vendor that was over $5,000. That was to Performance Food Service for $42,824.
Great,
So-
thank you, Doug.
You're welcome.
Anybody have any questions or comments? So I'll need a motion to approve this.
Motion to approve the August 27th through September 29th, 2025 manifest as presented.
Thank you, Caroline. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Ginny. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we're unanimous. Thank you, Doug, and that's it for you for tonight,
That is
correct?
it. Yeah.
All right, Budget Committee, Jared.
Meeting on the 21st. Jack doesn't know it, but he's covering.
All right, great. And CIP, we think is done, right? Does anybody know?
I believe CIP has been
Has
concluded
finished?
for
Yeah,
the year.
okay, thank you. C&E, Ginny.
I believe our business goes on to new business, so I will just announce that our next CNE meeting is November 17th at 7 PM at the SAU.
All right, thank you, Ginny. Policy Review, Shane.
Thank you. So we met a couple weeks ago. You'll see some of the results of that meeting in new business coming up. Our next meeting is a ways out in November 17th, 2025 at 5:30 PM at the SAU. And I want to apologize for the hundreds of you at home who were lined up for the SAU Policy Review Committee meeting that did not happen. We have to get some things in order, and then we'll plow through that stuff. So for those of you who are lined up and ready to go, and I apologize. So that's coming soon.
Thank you, Shane. PNC, Retta.
Yep, PNC will not be meeting this month, and our next meeting is on November 3rd.
Okay. SAU Board Meeting, Jared.
SAU board meeting is the 16th
Okay,
at the SAU building.
perfect. And then Shane, you already mentioned the SAU policy is to be
As I
determined.
stated, that will be, once we have a date for that, we will let you all know. Get your tickets.
All right, awesome. All right, so moving on to new business, we have an approval for addition of the following courses. Did you want to talk about that, or Wendy?
Yeah, I'll just give a little introduction, then I'll hand it off to Mrs. Kohler, and also our good folks from Goffstown High School are here, so Mr. Grisone would be happy to come up and be peppered with lots of challenging questions about these courses. The first thing I wanted to share with the board and with members of the public, we've done something slightly different for this evening. The entire board packet that all board members are looking at is posted online. So anyone who wanted to follow along, all the materials that are being reviewed are posted online, so you can actually look through the entire packet, which includes the new courses that are being requested. So essentially, I'll hand it off to Mrs. Kohler, but we have 4 new classes that we're offering for FY27, which will be AP Seminar, AP Macroeconomics, Timber Framing, and Group Fitness. Mrs. Kohler?
Great, thank you. So at our CNE meeting in September, Goffstown High School came and proposed the addition of these 4 classes. What we're looking for this evening is approval so that when we bring the program of studies back to you, it will first go to CNE in December and then to the board either at the end of December or January for approval. These courses would be part of it. So I know all of you were sent a lot of information about these classes, but for those people that are watching at home, the first one is an AP Macroeconomics class, and that is geared towards our juniors and seniors. Its emphasis is on national income, inflation, unemployment, fiscal and monetary policy, international trade, and a lot of those courses. Currently, right now, we do offer microeconomics, so we're looking to expand our economics offerings. Our second one is AP Seminar, which is primarily geared towards our 10th graders. We actually have limited AP courses right now offered for our 10th grade students, so it's something that we're excited to be able to offer. Students in this language arts class will be looking at analyzing texts, synthesizing sources, creating evidence-based arguments, a lot of essays, students' favorite words, and multimedia presentations. The next one is timber framing, and that would be offered in both the fall and spring semester. The board is aware that right now, Mr. Bracy and Mr. Chadbourne are offering an extended learning opportunity this school year. That's a supplement that goes with our Woods 2 and some of our architecture classes. Through Title IV grants, we were able to get more than $14,000 worth of equipment to have this project going. So we are now looking to move that into a course, knowing that we'll have laid the foundation with all of this ELO work to have the tools that they need to be able to sustain that class moving forward. And the last is group fitness. We are looking to continue to expand our offerings for physical education. These will be things like yoga, high-intensity interval training, circuit training, all of those kind of team fitness activities as part of our PE offerings. One thing that I'll mention is that all of these can be added staff neutral, so we are not looking to add any staffing to offer these classes. And any costs associated with the approval of these would be in the budget presentation. So all of those costs were thought of before we present the budget for this evening. So as Mr. Bulkey said, Mr. Grisone is happy to take any questions that anybody has.
Does anybody have any questions or comments?
These are just adding to, not replacing anything.
Correct. We are not looking to take away any courses right now from the program of studies.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, go ahead, Shane.
Just a kind of a curiosity question about timber framing. Is there a lot of interest in timber framing? Is that something that we think we'll be able to fill?
I do. Tim, if you want to come up and talk. So right now, the students that are involved in our woodworking programs now are doing this supplemental. And I actually had a meeting last week with Mr. Bracy and Mr. Chadbourne. Kids are excited. We know that when we finish this pergola project that they're going to be doing this year, we anticipate a lot of kids, once they see that finished product, are going to be excited about it. We're really looking to offer more of those hands-on opportunities for our kids here at Goffstown High School. We do know that we send a number of students to MST, but for some kids, going to MST is not a viable option. And to be able to offer something that's related to the trades here at Goffstown High School would be incredible for them. But I'm seeing a lot of interest. Tim, are you seeing the same?
Yeah, I think it's going to bolster not only the wood engineering courses, the architecture courses, add another hands-on opportunity for students. I think with the proposed 24 credit diploma that's coming with the new program of studies for starting with the class of 2030, I think we will see more elective courses because you're going to have a lot of courses that are satisfying graduation requirements in multiple ways and singular courses. So I think our elective offerings will be highly enrolled.
Just a quick follow-up.
Yeah, go ahead, Shane.
Has the ELO opportunity been popular so far?
I would say yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was able to see the pictures of what the students have worked with Mr. Chadbourne and Mr. Bracy. It is remarkable, the work that they put in already. Right now, they're actually doing some bench work to start learning about how to use tools and things like that effectively. So the kids are very excited. I happen to have somebody who lives in my house who's a junior, who is involved in Woods 2 right now, and he comes home and it's the class he talks about all the time because of this pergola project.
And I think Mr. McDermott, in addition to the
Yep.
projects that are going on with the woodworking, Mr. McDermott's also doing extensive work with students in the ELO.
All right, thank you.
Nice. Thank you, Shane. Anyone else? Questions, comments? All right, well, if somebody would like to do a motion.
I'll do a motion to approve. You want a motion to approve all in one?
Yeah, that's
one's
fine.
One, okay. Motion to approve AP seminar, AP macroeconomics, timber framing, and group fitness as presented.
Thank you, Caroline. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Ginny. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? We're unanimous. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on, field trip.
Yeah, so next up, I'd like to call up and welcome two teachers, Jennifer Barrier and Lorenzo Angelides, up to come and speak about the trip that they'd like to do to Quebec in January of '26, And I've had the chance to review the itinerary. It looks spectacular. Mrs. Morin, who is a big fan of Quebec, gave it her seal of approval, I believe. So in general, I think the board knows this. I'm a big believer in the opportunity to support kids traveling and to have the opportunity to go and travel to another country, to another city is just a remarkable experience. So I have thoroughly reviewed this and put my full support behind the proposal. So with that, what are we looking to do in Quebec?
Yeah.
Lorenzo? Whoever.
Go for it.
So we're looking to, for your approval to leave on Friday morning, and we'll be traveling up to Quebec. It's a few weeks before the Winter Carnival, so students will be able to experience the traditional sugar shack in Quebec, and we'll go tobogganing in the city, and I think the itinerary is pretty well planned, and there is room to add certain activities if needed. We will be going up to Quebec by coach bus, and we will be returning on Sunday evening pretty late. And then Monday is a holiday, so students will be able to recoup on that day and back to school on Tuesday.
Perfect.
You want to add anything?
I don't think I have too much else to add. It's a really awesome time to visit Quebec if you have not gone up north, but the fact that it's so close, we were able to keep costs down for a trip of 3 days, 2 nights. And really, the hotel that we're going to is phenomenal. They will have authentic sugar shack, they put on traditional Quebecois food while they're teaching about the sugar shack. And of course, the boiled maple syrup on the snow, everybody's favorite. And while we will be visiting the ice hotel, we promise that nobody's children will be sleeping on blocks of ice. We'll have lots of heat in the hotel room for them. But we're really excited to bring an opportunity for especially our French program.
Wonderful.
Can I just say something?
Yes.
Thank you for saying Quebec
Oh,
and not Quebec.
bien sûr.
Anybody have questions, comments? Go ahead, Jenny.
I think it's a great opportunity for kids to practice their French-speaking skills as well while they're there. Sometimes it's kind of difficult to speak with French-speaking people, but it's good to have that practice. I think it's great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny.
I have a question. Is
Go
there a
ahead.
max for kids, students that you'll take? Will there be a cap? Or
Um,
will you take anybody that'll?
To be honest, no. If we fill one bus, we just get another bus. So I guess our capability would be, we can max out of this hotel. I should be specific. We can max out of this hotel. However, I've done this trip quite a few times, and we've already got a backup hotel. So I just like this one because you don't have to do quite as many hills in Old Quebec. If you've been, I am of an age that's not so easy anymore. So, and at least not in the snow. But so not really on that. And actually, in your packets, the information does show that if we get above, I want to say 36 students, that cost does go down a little bit too.
Yeah, I saw that little process.
So, and we initially thought of promoting the trip for French students who are taking French here at Goffstown High School, but upon having some discussions with Jen, the department, we're going to open it to the whole school. Make it eligible for every student who's interested.
Why not?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Nice. Thank you, Vanessa. All right, anyone else? So we'll need a motion. Go ahead, Shane.
I'll make a motion to approve the Goffstown High School field trip to Quebec City in January 2026.
Thank you, Shane. Do I have a second? Second. By Caroline. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining. We're unanimous. Thank you. Have a
Thank you very
wonderful
much.
Thank you so
time.
much.
An awesome
Thank you
time.
for your time.
Au revoir.
Yeah. All right, Shane.
Show off.
You're up.
Oh,
First
she's
read.
already there, huh?
Already
All right.
there. First reads.
All right, guys, so these are first reads, so no action tonight. I will just kind of run down the sheet that's in front of you. You guys can read, so. But for the public, so AB is a policy in response to the new New Hampshire parental rights that was signed into law. So this is a new policy for the district. We've never had this before, so that's up for first read. Second one we have tonight is ADB/GBEC, and when you see them slash like that, a lot of times it is referring to specific groups. So A is like general, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yep.
And then G is for
Personnel.
Personnel, yep. So this one hasn't been reviewed since 2000, so it's a dual coded policy, as I just discussed. And that will be placed in our HR policies once that is through. Another one we have is DAF, which is, so DAF was a consolidation of federal policy, so there's a lot of federal statutes in this one. So it was like 12 different things in a big document, so now they're all just in one document instead of 12 different things, so. Did I explain that correctly, sort of?
Yeah, you combine
Yeah.
DAF 1 and 11 into DAF.
Yeah, so there's a lot of combination there. So take a look at that one. EEAEA is the mandatory drug and alcohol testing. So we haven't looked at that since 2007, so we made some amendments to that one, so check those out. EEAEAR is the regulation for alcohol testing for school bus and commercial drivers. So we are going to delete, or our recommendation is to delete the regulation as it doesn't apply any longer. IJO/KA, so again, this is a dual coded policy. School, family, and community partnerships. IK, earning of high school credit. So we looked at this one and there's some slight confusion because Mrs. McCann from the high school had some forethought and used the credits that are going to be applicable to the class of 2030. So we were looking at it like, oh, well, this doesn't make sense, but it actually does make sense because it's forward thinking. So keep that in mind when you're reviewing that one. And then KB and KBR, Title I, Family and Community Engagement. So Wendy looked at this one. This is a policy that is going to replace KBA and KBAR. So, and just a note, MVMS and Bartlett are our Title I schools in the district.
Thank you, Shane.
So there's some time to review those, and if you have questions, we will bring those forward at second reading.
Yep, at the next board meeting. All right, thank you. All right, staffing.
On the staffing sheet this evening, everyone should have a copy in your packets, I believe. So there are notifications. We have a number of student teachers, multiple students, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 students. This is all being coordinated by Mrs. McCann, and we're very glad to welcome these aspiring educators into the Goffstown School District. I would again emphasize that when you care about public school, you have to want to see people coming into this. So we're happy to be a field site for people who aspire to become teachers. And then hopefully, they'll love it here so much that they'll want to stay. So we also have a student observer who's here observing Marissa O'Shea. So those are notifications only. For your approval this evening, we have a couple of co-curricular nominations for both boys. So these are all middle school. Soccer, boys A, boys volunteer, and girls B for your approval this evening.
All right, so I need a motion.
Please.
Go ahead, Shane.
I'll make a motion to approve the co-curricular sports nominations as presented.
Thank you, Shane. Do I have a second? By Ginny. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? We're unanimous.
And lastly, on the staffing sheet, there are a number, the board will recall that we have a new process that we've put in place within the last year or two, where twice a year, we have the opportunity for new co-curricular requests to come before the board for your consideration. These programs would all go through a pilot period of time where there would be no funding associated with stipends for teachers or advisors. And those ones in this next batch our show chorus / musical event at Bartlett Elementary, student council at Bartlett Elementary, student council at Maple Ave, book club at Goffstown High School, and Turning Point USA Goffstown here at Goffstown High School. So these co-curricular requests have gone through the process and have met the criteria, so our recommendation would be to give these the green light to enter the new pilot phase.
Questions, comments? Go ahead, Shane.
Could someone provide some information about what Turning Point USA is?
Mrs. Kohler?
Mr. Grisone, I was not part of the process for that.
So I
just want to make sure that I'm not giving false information, so.
So Turning Point is a conservative group that is modeled after the work of Charlie Kirk. And I think that this is a political group of students that want to talk about conservative issues.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Retta.
Just for clarification, so it is, it's acceptable for us to have political groups in the school. I've been curious about this in the past, so this is not a concern, but I'm just wondering if this is acceptable according to any school policy.
It is. And so just to give a little context, it's my understanding that there are about 55,000 requests that have come in since Charlie Kirk was killed of this same organization being started across high schools and colleges around the country. So this is permissible. Mr. Mayotte is the advisor to this club, and he would do a nice job with that. So if there are other groups that wanted to come together and put a request in to be a club at Goffstown High School, they can certainly go through the same process.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Retta. So you need an approval for this?
Yes, please.
All right, go ahead, Laura.
I just had a quick question. The student councils at the elementary school level, so have those been in existence before this time though? Like at Maple Ave, that's been running for a bit, right?
Mr.
And this
Demers,
is
you
new.
want to come up and field that? Sure.
You are correct.
Okay.
It's been in existence for a long time at Maple Ave, but we just want to make sure that we're following the process
Okay.
but it's been in place a long time.
And it's new at Bartlett though, is that right?
Mrs. Pishka?
I can answer for you. Is it a yes?
So they did have student council back in 2014 was the last time, so we brought it back.
Okay.
Nice.
Cool. So yes.
All right. Anyone else? Questions, comments? All right, anybody want to do a motion to approve the pilot of the request?
Motion.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I'll
Go
make
ahead,
a motion-
Vanessa.
I'll make a motion to approve the 5 new co-curriculars as outlined.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
By Caroline. Any further discussion?
I'm going to put myself out here. With putting Turning Point into the school, we don't feel that there'll be, I know there's a lot of violence that have come out of a lot of things, and we are not concerned at all that we're going to have any violence in the school that our administrators are going to have to deal with.
So I'm not familiar with the violence that you're talking about, but I can say that this club has gone through the appropriate process. They've met the requirements in terms of presenting to the board. I would caution the board about thinking about this as a political entity. This is a student club, and I would encourage you to think about it not different than student council or show chorus. It's just going to go through the same process as any other club.
And they have a teacher as an ad.
They do.
Right, they have a teacher running
They
the
do.
program.
Yep.
Go ahead, Retta.
I just wanted to point out that the school has a lot of clubs.
Yes.
And they represent different interests, and
Yep.
this is just one of the interests. So
Right.
I think it's great that there's so many clubs. I think it's great we have a pilot process because some start really strong and may die out over time. But if there's an interest, then it's great.
Do you want to go over what they have to do? Like, they have to have so many students be interested, they have to.
They have to submit some forms that have to be reviewed by the activities director, Mr. DeRocher, here at Goffstown High School, and then ultimately it goes on to Mr. McBride's office for approval that they've submitted the appropriate paperwork. They have an advisor, they have at least 10 students who are interested, and that they've completed the process as it's outlined.
Thank you. Anything else? We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Okay, we're unanimous. All right, thank you. All right, so we are on to budget presentations.
Okay, so, well, people get excited about different things. So Mrs. Kohler gets really excited about March Madness. Mr. Gross gets really excited about the NFL playoffs. I get really excited about budget season. And Mr. Totten and I have been so excited, we're chomping at the bit to go through and present the FY27 budget to you. So we're going to start with, so the presentation is behind me. I'm not going to look at that. I'm going to follow along with the slides in front of me. And I think at least Caroline and Heather can do the same if you don't want to have your back to the screen. So we'll begin with an overview of the timelines. So this evening, as well as Wednesday evening, we'll have our two presentations that will include 2 evenings of presentations that will go through all the schools and all the departments. There is a typo on this slide number 2. We do not have a meeting on October 15th, although it's possible if the board wanted to schedule a budget workshop. I do have a New Boston School Board that evening, but Mr. Totten would be most pleased to do a meeting if that was the wishes of the Goffstown School Board. We also have our 2 review days of October 20th and October 21st. We would anticipate at both of those evenings to begin on page 1 and to review every single line of the entire Goffstown School District budget. So on the 6th and the 8th, they will be primarily presentations. On the 20th and 21st, those will be work sessions where we will review line by line. We would be looking for the board's approval of the budget on or around October 21st, and then we would plan on presentations to the Budget Committee on October 28th and October 30th. Moving on to slide 3. This evening, we'll present an overview of the budget, including our vision, our budget priorities, and the overall budget process. Mr. Totten will talk at length about revenues. We will review all of the district lines, food service, and we would anticipate this evening that we would hope to have time for Glen Lake and/or Bartlett, maybe Maple Ave. So the elementary schools are ready to go if time permits, and if not, they're ready to be in the queue on Wednesday evening. On Wednesday evening, if any of the elementary schools did not have the chance to go, they will present, and then in addition, we'll have the middle school and the high school. Intertwined in all of that will be special education, facilities, IT, embedded throughout everything. So as you see, we have our administrators here this evening. So if any questions come up about any of these departments, please feel free to ask. We have the experts in the room. Okay, so now we're going to get into the numbers. So on slide 4, what you'll see here is our FY26 approved budget that we're currently in, this is all funds, is $57,452,484. The FY27 proposed general fund budget is $56,465,973. And we're looking at the food service budget of $1.54 million, and we have our grants budget at $1.3 million. So when we look at the all the funds together, that is when you combine your food service along with your special revenue budget along with Fund 10, our general fund budget. So the total FY27 appropriation, the gross appropriation with food service and with revenue and with the grant revenues is $59,313,052. The difference between our current year, FY26, and FY27 is $1.8 million. Moving on to slide 5, we'll talk about what that comes in with. So the current FY26 budget is $54,689,000. The FY27 base, and remember, we use the word base to mean default budget. So, and Mr. Totten will talk about the default budget a little bit later, but the base budget for FY27 is $55,618,251. In FY27, we have about $847,000 of new spending. So as we go through the budget this evening, you'll hear what makes up that $847,000. So let me give you a couple of spoiler alerts. It's health insurance, it's IT, it's a reduction in funding to support our GAP program, and it's an overage at Goffstown High School for our kids taking career and technical education. So, and facilities. Those are the majority of the drivers. IT, health insurance, GAP, CTE, and facilities. That's what makes up the majority of the 847,000. The difference between FY '26 and the FY '27 default is 1.7%, and the difference between FY '26 and the requested FY '27 is 3.25%. Now, 3.25% is higher than we wanted it to be. And it's important for the board to remember, we're currently negotiating a contract with the Goffstown Education Association, GEA. That is our top priority in this budget year. So we have done everything we can to bring this budget in as low as we possibly can to make as much room for the teacher contract as we possibly can. So the entirety of this budget is based on the premise that we will be bringing forth a recommendation on a warrant article for a new teacher contract. I would have liked to have seen that a little lower, but as you'll hear when we go through the budget drivers, that's really what's contributed to that 3.25% increase. So the budget vision for FY '27 is to continue to focus on high-quality instruction. From a staffing position, there are no new staffing positions in this budget request. No new teaching positions or support staff positions. And this year, as we have done in the past, we continuously reevaluate our staffing needs as programs move, as groups of kids move, and as our needs move. So as we always do, we will have conversations about there are 2 positions that we are supporting that will be new teaching positions, but they will come from existing staff, existing personnel. So we have a number of positions that are 1-year positions. We have positions that somebody might be retiring from. So we're able to do it typically through attrition, but we would anticipate that 2 positions would be moving during FY '27 to support Mountain View Middle School. Technology. I shared with the board last year when we did the presentation for FY '26, I said that we would be looking at a multi-year focus on IT. This is the continuation of that. So what you will continue to see in the FY '27 budget, and then spoiler alert, FY '28 budget, you're going to see IT again. We're trying to spread out a lot of these projects over multiple fiscal years and to be able to manage all of it in totality. But IT and network security and network administration is a paramount function of the vision. And lastly, on the bottom of slide 6, our core reading program is outdated. And I wanted to share with the board that there was a technical advisory that was put out by the New Hampshire Education Department called Literacy Skill Development in Elementary Grades, and it's dated July 30th, 2024. And there was a change to RSA 189.53. And this change requires us to have a program, and I'll quote the law, beginning July 1, 2027. So in July of '27, we are required to have a core reading program that meets the following criteria. All school districts and chartered public schools that provide elementary education shall provide measurable, evidence-based instruction in literacy for all students through grade 5, including explicit, systematic instruction in phonemic awareness, phonics, both decoding and encoding of sounds and words, fluency, vocabulary and comprehension, writing including grammar and mechanics, speaking, listening, mathematics, reasoning, and calculation. Those are tucked in there, but we already have that covered. But the reading pieces are new. And the requirement that you have an evidence-based program is something that is new to us. Our current program, the Wonders program, is not evidence-based, and it's old enough that the literature around evidence-based programs did not exist yet. So we have 2 things that are going against us. Number 1, we would not be compliant with RSA 189.53 on July 1 of '27 unless we change programs. And the other thing is, our program now is old enough that we can no longer buy consumables, and some of the digital tools are no longer being offered because they have new products that they're trying to encourage districts to go to. So the good news is that we have been focused on this since last year. Mrs. Kohler has a team of teachers that are working and reviewing core reading programs. And what I didn't want to do was put this new core reading program in the FY27 budget. So what are we going to do then, Brian? So my recommendation is that we focus on this project this year. So Mr. Totten and I have met. We've done a partial freeze on some budget lines already to try to free up money. We are looking at around a $400,000 cost for a new evidence-based core reading program that is compliant with the statute that will go into place in 2027. So I've presented you with a little bit of a challenge here in that we either need to add $400,000 to the budget for FY27 or have a conversation about buying that program this year, which is what my recommendation is.
Mr.
Wendy?
Bulkey, if I can also just add that we had a multi-year contract with Wonders that is up at the end of this year. So that's another important factor for all of you to have is regardless of this RSA, this change in the law, we were at the end of our contract anyways. We were using the 2017 version of Wonders. As we've been meeting with vendors to look at new program, we met with McGraw-Hill, who puts out Wonders. They will no longer be continuing with Wonders. They're moving to a new program as it is. So I do want to put that out there.
So at the end of this year, our program goes away.
Do we have enough time to get our teachers together to choose a
We've
program?
already been doing it. Yep.
Pilot it and get it started?
So we've
And-
started this work actually last school year, putting our group together. Our group is made up of interventionists, special ed teachers, classroom teachers from both Goffstown and New Boston, so we're doing this project together. We've already looked at 5 different programs, and we will be doing a pilot this year. So we're in good shape. We're modeling what we're doing right after what we did when we were adopting our Math and U program at the elementary level. We're taking those same steps.
And this was our reading cycle year?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Ginny. Go ahead, Jared.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand, based on what you're saying, that this is going to come from line item transfers this year in this bottom line budget that we have. I'm sure we're going to be seeing that later on within the next couple of meetings of where that money would be coming from to support
Correct.
this.
So that would be my recommendation, Jared. Really, what we were trying to do is, when we were going through and we started to compile the FY27 budget, it was very quickly obvious to us that we were seeing significant overages in health insurance, in IT, in facilities. CTE, which we've talked about, is about a $200,000 hit that you're going to see in the budget so that kids can continue to take vocational programming. When we started to see all those things together in totality, it very quickly became obvious to us that putting another $400,000 into the FY27 budget was going to be a very difficult pill to swallow. So I appreciate that I'm putting you on the spot a little bit through this, but I also wanted you to see that we're trying to do everything we can to look at this over. Actually, what I'd been talking to Wendy about was the idea of splitting it over more than one fiscal year, trying to do things and pull it together as best we can, because we recognize that we have a teacher contract. We want to present a budget that is as low and lean as we can to maximize the support for the teacher contract. So that's really what we were trying to do. And then, on top of it, this is an unfunded mandate. So the fact that the state is, and by the way, I don't think that this is a bad thing. And is this good educationally? It is. It is. However, when you tell me that I have to do all of these things, boy, that sounds like an unfunded mandate to me. And it sounds like it's in violation of Article 2 of the New Hampshire Constitution. But if I move past that, could you have a program that meets all of these criterion without spending any money? Maybe you could piece something together that might be open source, but at the end of the day, you would need to cover all of these different components through a research-based comprehensive core reading program, which is really good for kids. So in the way of recent history, over my tenure in SAU 19, we have done 2 core reading programs, with Wonders being the second one. Prior to those 2 core reading programs, there was no core reading program in Goffstown. Reading Streets was our first program, and then Wonders was our second program. Depending on, prior to having a research-based core reading program or one of these core reading programs, what your kid's reading experience was like tended to depend on the teacher. And these programs bring high-quality instruction to all kids. It's one systematic way of incorporating all the different components into one research-based program. So that's one of the biggest challenges we had this year, was to look at it and say, how in the heck are we going to make room for a $400,000 core reading program? I started talking to Wendy about this last year, and we were trying, so Wendy's been focused on this early because we knew we needed to be aggressive about getting a team together, looking at programs and evaluating them. But I just really didn't feel comfortable putting $400,000 into FY27. And if the board has an appetite for this, I think that we can come up with a pathway to do it this year and to minimize the cost impact on this.
So Ginny had her hand up. Go ahead, Ginny.
I was just going to ask if it was an unfunded mandate before you said, and they're not sending any money forward for any of this? Does it have it at the end of that RSA like it does on some, this may require additional funding, any of that, or is it just, this is
The
it,
last
this is it?
sentence is, all instruction shall be designed to assist students to achieve grade level literacy and to provide the opportunity for each student to learn according to such students' needs and abilities as set forth by the State Board of Education and the minimum standards for New Hampshire's public elementary schools. So it doesn't have any of that, but it's unusual that they pass this in '24, it doesn't go into effect until '27.
And they don't tell you about it till
Well,
27.
the good thing is we knew this was coming, we had some time, but in order to comply with this, we need to be looking at and budgeting and paying for a program at least this year into next year.
I mean, it's a good program, it sounds like, because phonics and all that is important.
It's a good thing,
But
it's more comprehensive
it's
than
a
the
lot of
program we
money
have
at a
now.
time where
It is a lot of money, and
we don't need
this is,
unfunded mandates.
this is absolutely an unfunded mandate, but this is good for kids. So when they're good for kids, I tend to tolerate them a little more, but this one has a significant cost associated with. And this will be a pretty significant undertaking to train all of our teachers, to make sure that we're moving all of our curriculum assets, that we have all the technology to support that. We integrate new programs into Schoology, provide all those resources for teachers. So it will be a lot. This is a big project. But again, I hope the board can understand kind of the ideological push that I had is I just didn't want to put another 400 grand into FY27. If the board is fundamentally opposed to this, I think our position would be then we need to add it into the budget. Because one way or another, I need to be compliant in '27 with this mandate, and this appears to be the only way that we will be able to do that. So, and again, if anyone's interested in reading the technical advisory, it's Literacy Skill Development in Elementary Schools from the New Hampshire Education Department, dated July 30th, 2024, and the statute is RSA 189:53.
So just to add on to that, I think, adding a reading program is always a large amount of work and a large amount of dollars, because the amount of books that come in with it. But we're hoping to take a positive from this too. If we are able to purchase it this year, we're hoping to kind of use it as a negotiation tactic to kind of maybe lower the price a little bit more than if we were purchasing it next year as well. So we won't go into that fully, but that is another goal of ours.
Go ahead, Wendy.
The other piece that I'll also mention is whenever you're buying a new program, especially a reading program, those upfront costs are significant because you need to buy the anthology with all of the text in it, the decodable, so all of those things, once you have them, then you're paying for what we normally do, which is our consumables and our online access. But that upfront first year cost is significant because you need the reading materials.
Ginny, do you have your hand up?
If this is required by law and our budget's not passed and it's in this budget, what do we do with something we're not going to be able to fulfill the law because we don't have the money? And so what happens in that situation?
That's a good question. I would think in general that the Department of Education would start to have an issue with that we So all of the principals in the room have to do something every other year called IBAS, which is Input-Based Accountability System, in which the principals have to sign off that they meet, their school meets the requirements that are outlined in ED 306, which are the so-called minimum standards that you've heard about, and the principals all have to sign off on that. So what would happen is I would anticipate that in July 1 of 27, there would be a new question that would ask, is your school compliant with RSA 189.53? Do you have a reading program with these components? And if a school district says no, then I would anticipate that the department would have follow-up with us. And I mean, it would be easy to say we had this money in the budget, it was cut. Or a more interesting question would be if you did it as a separate standalone warrant article and it was voted down, that you would then be able to say, we're not compliant, and I think we would have some potential issue with that. You know, would the department withhold funding or anything of that nature? I would anticipate not, and I would certainly fight ferociously to keep that from happening. But, I mean, obviously, this is a new law that we have to comply with in 27. And again, well-meaning, well-intentioned legislators, but, you know, everyone who voted on this, do you think anyone knew that for Goffstown that was a $400,000 yes vote? Because that's what it was. It was a $400,000 yes vote. And think about cities like Manchester. Massive undertaking if they don't already have a program that meets this criteria.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For context, Brian, do we recall what it was to implement the Wonders program?
The cost?
Yes.
So I remember, so the two that we did, the first one was Reading Streets. And Reading Streets, I'm going to date myself here. Does anyone remember the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act? Okay. ARA funds. We used ARA funds back when they first came out, and we did something that was called lowering our maintenance of effort for special education, and we were able to free up $350,000 to cover the first reading program. So I remember the number 350 for Reading Streets. Wendy, do you have any sense of Wonders? I think Wonders was actually right about the same. I think it was three and change. However, that was 2017. We're anticipating, 8 or so years later, that the cost, just like everything else, will be considerably higher. Now, Wendy, keep your hand on your wallet when you talk to Wendy, because she's going to shake these vendors down, as she always does. So 400,000 is kind of our best guess. Could it be less? I think it could be, and it would depend on what the multi-year kind of agreement might look like in terms of your year one costs, your reoccurring costs, your consumables, how much of the training is covered, some of those variables.
If I can also add, I've started to get, just because I've been talking to the vendors, I've been asking for, what the pricing would be. And depending on the program, it's been between $370,000 and like $410,000. That's where I've been. Again, that's before negotiation, and a lot of times I am able to get some pricing taken down a little bit. But at the same time, that's this year's right now cost.
Yeah.
And they've all warned me that after, December 31st, things are going to change. And then again, July 1st, because of when districts look at purchasing. So I anticipate if we were to wait until after July 1 for that price, that will go up.
Go ahead, Jerry.
So just putting it again in context, knowing that our current reading program is ending, knowing that we're going to have to spend an amount of money, I understand that we love bashing the state for this, but this is something that we'd have to do anyway, whether it's $350,000 or $400,000.
That's correct.
Thank you.
That's correct. We would have to do it anyway. Could we put it off? We could. Could we, twisty ties and duct tape get through a little longer? Maybe. But I think that it's time. I think our teachers think it's time for a new program, and I think that this will ultimately help raise student achievement. So I think this is good for kids, but I am very happy to blame it on the state.
Point taken.
Thank you. Okay, continuing on to slide 7. So priorities for teaching and learning. We continue to acknowledge, Doug and I had a pretty lengthy conversation about this. When we started the budget process, we know how high taxes are. We know inflation is high. So we went into the budget development process knowing full well that people struggle to pay their property tax bills, knowing full well that the state continues to not meet its constitutional obligation to fund an adequate education for all New Hampshire children. All of those things we know all too well. And when we went into this, I could not come in with requests for new personnel. So there were, you'll see this evening, there were a number of positions that were requested. Two positions have been supported through this budget process, and we would anticipate using current positions to fund those. Moving on to slide 8, budget priorities for IT. So Mr. Bourget is here. The board has heard extensive presentations about our need for cybersecurity. I would like to again thank the board for the support that you've given us to increase the department. So we've added new positions to the IT department. Specifically in the last 2 years have been our help desk positions, which ultimately do nothing but provide better customer service to our end users. So the student who can't log on, a teacher who might not be able to print or is having an issue, we have better customer service to support that than we've ever had before. But as I've said before, our commitment to IT is going to continue into the future and will be multiple fiscal years. I can't get that department where they need to be in one budget swoop. You would not tolerate the number. So the only way to do this is to keep chucking away at it a little bit, piece by piece, year after year, and that's what we're going to continue to do. Same story for facilities on slide 9. So what we continue to see is much like at your own homes, if you do any repairs, if you go to Home Depot and buy materials, everything costs more and all of the trades cost more. So we've continued to see that as we've done building repairs, as we've done preventative maintenance, as we've done projects like the cistern project that we did this past summer. Everything that we're seeing costs more. And as the board has heard me say a lot of times, our school buildings are the most valuable asset the Goffstown taxpayers own. And we need to take care of our buildings. We need to take care of our things. Preventative maintenance is cheaper than complete overhauls. So what you'll see throughout this budget are increases in our facilities line. Moving on to slide 10, we start to look at our historical enrollment. So the first thing I would show you is if you just watch that bottom trend line from 2020 until 2025. In 2020, we had 2,780 students. In October 1, which was just a few days ago, was 2,763. So our enrollment has essentially been flat for 5 years. Now, this is fairly significant for the board to recognize because the majority of school districts have seen declining enrollment. I will tell you, as I've told you before, I would welcome declining enrollment. Mr. Demers would welcome declining enrollment because Maple Ave is busting at the seams. If we had declining enrollment, that would allow us to do things like have smaller class sizes. That would allow us to do things like consider full-day kindergarten. The majority of New Hampshire school districts that did full-day kindergarten, they were able to do it because they had declining enrollment. They had space at their elementary schools. They could take a second grade teacher and make them a full-day kindergarten teacher because their enrollment dropped. We don't have that. We haven't seen that yet. As Mrs. Stoyle has heard me say 100 times over the last 15 years, I believe in full-day kindergarten. I wish we could do full-day kindergarten. Full-day kindergarten is nowhere on the horizon in Goffstown. Goffstown will be the last town in the state to not have full-day kindergarten. Right now, there are 3. It's Goffstown, Londonderry, and who's the third? New Boston. New Boston will get it before Goffstown. If I were a betting man, New Boston probably has full-day kindergarten next year. But Goffstown, this will continue to be very, very elusive for us, and I'll just leave it there. So moving on to slide 11, Mr. Totten put this together, and I thought it was significant so that you could see the comparison of the trend line. So I appreciate that Doug did this. So you can see the bigger overarching theme that school enrollment across the state of New Hampshire continues to decline. The slope of that line is downward. Whereas our trend line, We had a little bit, by the way, don't forget historically in here would have been Dunbarton students. But you'll see that our trend line continues to be flat. Our enrollment continues to be flat. The bottom of page 12, just for your information, this goes through and provides some information about all of our special education numbers. I would always point out that the percentage of population at Glen Lake is always artificially high because our preschool program is for special education children, so that drives the overall percentage of kids at Glen Lake School. But all the other schools were plus or minus right around the state averages. Moving on to slide 13, you'll hear a presentation from Mrs. Pizarro, our wonderful, incredibly talented food services director this evening on our lunch program. And you can just see the thing I would point out to here is this shows the number of students who receive free and reduced lunch. So if you look at the far outside right corner, you'll see that overall, every school has declined in the number of eligible students receiving free and reduced lunch. Now, there might be more kids that are eligible, and that number could arguably be higher, but this is the percentage of people who have put in and have qualified for those services. But you'll see that we continue to trend downward. And overall, the state of New Hampshire's percentage of free and reduced lunch is 23.74%. 23%. Our highest school is Bartlett, which is 24.29. So we have one school that is slightly higher than the state average, and all of our other schools are considerably lower. The next slide, slide 14, this is one of my favorites. And if you've never had me explain this to you, I apologize in advance. Equalized assessed property evaluation per pupil is a state report that the Department of Education puts out every year, and it essentially identifies how much property value is behind every child in your school district. So essentially what the state does is they take the total amount of property valuation in an entire community and they divide it by your number of students. And this is a very important telling metric. The state average is $2,082,000 of property land behind every student. $2 million. Every kid in the state of New Hampshire equals $2 million worth of property value. However, in Goffstown, it's 1.3 million. So we are way under the state average for the equalized assessed property evaluation for every child. So what does that mean? When the land is worth less, you have to tax at a higher rate to get the same amount. That's what that ends up driving. So this number, and Doug included Manchester. I thought this was an important one for the board to see. Manchester has a higher equalized property evaluation per child than both Goffstown and Boston. This has been one of the reports that you've heard me talk about for years. We have a high number of kids and we don't have the property value behind each one, and that's ultimately what drives your property tax rates. So always pay attention to the equalized assessed property evaluation. And again, the return on investment in Goffstown is very strong, but the problem is we don't have the value of the land behind every child. And by the way, if you ever want to have a little fun, go read this report and look at some of the property valuations in some of these communities. It will blow your mind. Newcastle, New Hampshire.
So speaking of that report, so I first want to thank GTV. They've been showing the screen as far as what we've been going over. But on the web, there is this whole presentation, which includes town-by-town valuation report, which Superintendent Balke just talked about, as well as different things about free and reduced lunch. It also has average class size, you know, so there's this information that you're seeing tonight and you'll see on Wednesday night, but then there's also information at the end, which comes directly from the state website as well. So that is on our webpage underneath SAU and then underneath the budget thing. So just like in previous years, you'll be able to find the presentation as well as the budget with the actuals from previous years. Now, unfortunately, our website is going to be shifting to a new website, and currently, a lot of times when you try to access a PDF on that website, you'll get the spinning wheel. So sometimes if you're trying to access it in the evening, you get the spinning wheel less, but we will be migrating to a new website soon, and hopefully at that point, that spinning wheel will go away. But all of that information is there for people to kind of take their time as they kind of look through different reports.
Thank you, Doug.
Moving on to slide 15, this provides a general fund overview of our revenue. And I would welcome Doug to have any comments on this, but you'll see this basically breaks out, and the short answer is about 68% of all of our total revenue comes from local property taxes. So just shy of 70% of all of the cost to run our schools comes from local property tax. And remember, swept statewide education property tax is a fake statewide tax. This is money that's raised locally, it's retained locally, and the state calls it adequacy. So again, we just have to remember this for what it is. But this also breaks out the other percentages across the entities. Moving on to slide 16, a 10-year change in state adequacy, swept, and local property tax. Isn't this interesting? So if we go back and we look at where were we 10 years ago, in FY15, what's the percentage change in adequacy? The percentage change per year is about 1.7%, which doesn't keep up with inflation based on my math. Swept, in 10 years, swept has gone up less than 0.5%. And our local taxes have continued to go up around 4.73%. Because we continue to fund almost 70% of our schools coming from local property taxes. Anytime we have a budget conversation, I would be remiss to say it's unfortunate that the state continues to not meet their constitutional obligation because it pits communities like Goffstown against itself. There are too many competing interests. We need to pay for roads. We have to have a contract for firemen and police. All of these competing interests are all coming out of the same pair of pants, local property taxes. It's all the same. And unfortunately, even though our prices have continued to go up, the revenues, the corresponding revenues, have not gone up. And unfortunately, that means that we have a very high burden on our local taxpayers. Moving on to slide 17. Our goal is to always have a competitive cost per pupil. This board has heard me talk about this for a number of years, and I have continued to tell you that I'm increasingly less and less and less proud of our cost per pupil. It's a challenge for us, and I think it's always good for us to keep an eye on the bottom line, but I think we need to do better by our kids. I think we need to do better by our community, and having the lowest cost per pupil is not really something to be very proud of. So again, I already mentioned 68% coming from local property taxes. Slide 18 starts to compare our cost per pupil with the state average, and the bar graph says it all. So your gray line is the state cost, the black line is the Goffstown cost, and as you can see, we are well below the state average per pupil cost at every level and have been year after year after year. And in fact, slide 19, so the latest data is from FY24. The new data won't come out until probably December, but last year, Goffstown elementary schools were the 18th lowest out of 154 school districts. We were $3,431 less per pupil. Our middle school cost is the lowest out of 62 middle schools in the state, and we're $4,600 less than the average. And our high school is the third lowest out of 72 high schools in the state, $4,400 less. So overall, and again, I will preface this by saying, not proud of this. Goffstown is the lowest K-12 cost system in the state when you combine all three. Moving on to slide 20, our default calculation, Doug can get into this a little more, but The default process is outlined in RSA 40:13, and we will talk about that more as we go through. One thing that we've highlighted on this slide, we have tended to include any increases in energy costs as new spending. Not every school district does that, and I don't believe the town does that. They tend to think that it's required at default to heat your buildings. I don't see it that way. So we have always included anticipated increases in energy cost as new spending. And that's the same way we've done it for the last 15 years.
So as we go through the budget too, one of the forms that we turn into the state for the DRA is changes in default, because we have to be very specific on what those are, because again, default is linked to state law, it's linked to anything that the voters have approved, and it's linked to things that as far as like larger things that you're purchasing one time come off of it as well. So there are very specific things that it's linked to. So as we move it up and down, it's more black and white than it is gray at that point. So it's important, and we will do it to kind of show exactly what's in that default budget. But if we talk about some things that are in it this year that are kind of linked to state law, with the town, we're in charge of voting. So there are new ballot counting machines and there's new accessible voting machines. Those are required by state law. We have our share of it, therefore that part would be part of the default budget. A lot of special education costs because they're part of an IEP, which is protected. Most of those are default budget as well, but we'll go into more specifics as we go through the budget.
Yeah, I think
So
the
Jared had his hand up, hang on a second. Go ahead, Jared.
And just as a statement of fact, the default budget, there are two voter-approved items in our default budget, which is GESS contract that we have, as well as the area agreement. So I just want to make sure that we're also saying that that is part of the default budget that we have, and those increases associated with those contracts are also in our default budget, because they've already been approved by the constituency that we have here.
Yep, that is
Correct.
correct. And one of those things that come from our air agreement is once every 5 years, which we're budgeting for next year, and that's the reassessment of the middle school and the high school, and both of those are in the default budget.
So just in general, RSA 40:13 identifies that your default budget is it's essentially your current operating budget plus and minus any contracted obligations, minus any one-time expenditures. So that's the kind of the short, simplistic overview. But we'll get into that more as we go through. Moving on to slide 21. What budget lines demonstrate significant changes in the FY27 budget? So the first one, you'll see voter-approved salary and benefit adjustments for support staff, as well as overall health insurance expected increase. So that's $820,000. Yearly increase in regular education transportation, increase of $72,000. We've got a decrease in special education of about $127,000, and we've got an increase of the SAU assessment of $130,000. So moving on to slide 22, 78%, I can't emphasize this enough, 78% of the total budget goes to people, salaries and benefits. So about 80% are fixed staffing costs, and then on top of that, you've got another percentage that are energy. So you can see that very quickly, in totality, the percentage of our budget that is discretionary is actually pretty small comparatively as a percentage. Moving on to slide 23, as I've already stated, we're currently in process of negotiating with the Goffstown Education Association. We're hoping to have a successful process with them, and we anticipate bringing forward a warrant article for a new teacher contract to the voters this March. Health insurance is being budgeted with an 11.32% increase. So I mentioned a little earlier when I gave out correspondence that our health trust is a non-assessed risk pool. They are no longer doing guaranteed maximum rates. So we will receive our final health insurance number tomorrow. So tomorrow's the day. We will find out, would have been better if we had it today. We could have come in with better numbers, but we'll probably have a slight adjustment. Hopefully that will be an adjustment down tomorrow when we receive our rates. And for the New Hampshire retirement system, there's a slight increase in the retirement rate from FY26 to FY27. So the new spending, slide 24, this is really the story. I talked about this at the beginning. But here are your big budget drivers. Manchester School of Technology vocational high school tuition, this is an increase of $250,000. Why such an increase? Because the state continues to pay less and less of the bill. That's the shortest reason. They used to pay a higher percentage, they're now paying a lower percentage, and as such, they leave the local community to make up the delta. Now, I will share with the board, we have never restricted the number of kids that have been able to access programming at the Manchester School of Technology. I've never capped it. We've never restricted kids that wanted to take programs to explore, to try out different classes. We've allowed that to happen. One of the things that I hope to not have to do is do just that. So I have asked the high school, I ask sometimes for things that aren't really pleasant, but I ask them to come up with a model that if we were not successful in increasing the budget to this number, that we would begin with a fairly significant restriction in the number of students that could access these programs.
Go ahead, Jared.
On average, how many people actually attend MST at this point?
I've got the sheet on my computer. I think,
It's
do you
a
have a
little
number?
over 100.
This year, 107 this year.
107?
And it was about that amount last year as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so continuing down, we've got our EMC municipal lease. This is the second payment of 17, so that's $220,000. For IT, we have a $120,000 increase that we'll get into the details. Personnel, including GAP, is $76,698, and the GAP is our Goffstown adult program. That's the program that we had previously received. We're getting about, Doug, about $50,000 less from the state to run that program. So for us to continue to offer those classes to our high school students and to the community, there's about a $50,000 cost associated with that because the state no longer covers that. And then lastly, we've got an increase of phones, internet, dark fiber. This is all IT stuff, all things Stephen, and there's an increase of $60,000 there. So moving on to slide 20.
Hang on. Go ahead, Shane.
Sorry, I just wanted to make the public aware that although the state is decreasing their portion of the CT tuition costs and also the GAP funding, although those have gone down from the state, those are two items that the state uses as indicators to determine the effectiveness of the district. So although the state is contributing less, we are still being judged as a district on those numbers. So it's just incumbent on us to make up that cost somewhere, because the state is pushing CTE and alternative pathways, but also reducing the money that they're willing to fund those things.
Thank you, Shane.
Just for public awareness.
All accurate.
Thank you.
So moving on to slide 25, I indicated that there were no new position requests in the budget. That is accurate, but there are some recommended increases. So we're recommending an increase of $20,000 to the salary pool for our technology staff. We have a new co-curricular, two new co-curricular positions, which historically have been grant funded. So we have offered over the last several years a middle school theater program that Mrs. McCann has overseen, and those were all funded through grants. Those grants will no longer be available to us. We'd like to continue to offer those programs. There are two different elements of that, around $4,000 each. We included the district treasurer back in. I thought that was the direction that I had heard the board talk about. So the small stipend for the treasurer, which is a pretty significant amount of work from our treasurer, and we're very appreciative of our treasurer. We had a small increase of travel stipend based on actuals, and here's where you see the gap. So this $45,000, this is to make up for the lack of state money that we are no longer receiving to run the GAP program. So if we want to continue that, that's about $45,000. And then we have a travel stipend for food services that needed to be added. So the bottom of slide 26 shows the new positions that were asked for through the budget process. So, and the principals you can ask the principals about this when they present their budgets. The first two positions, we are in full support of. We need to add a 6th grade teacher for Mountain View for next year to alleviate some of the class size strains currently in 5th grade. And we need to add another math teacher next year based on our math enrollments and the class sizes that we're experiencing. We are fully in support of those 2 positions. Those 2 positions will come from existing staff positions. We will not add or increase the head count. Positions that were requested but were not funded, Mrs. Stoyle asked for another special education teacher / interventionist. Maple Ave asked for an additional school counselor. There was a request of additional custodial services at Mountain View. There was a request for a technology integration at Goffstown High School, another technology integrationist at the elementary level, and an increase in the number of days for the help desk technician. At this point, those positions are not included in this budget. And with that, that gets us to the beginning of our overview of the revenues. So I would pause there. This is the section where I'm going to hand it to Mr. Totten and just ask if there are any general questions on anything that I provided in the overview that we can either provide more specificity, a little further explanation, or anything that you'd like us to focus a little more on before I hand it to Mr. Totten. All right. Doug.
All right, so revenues, we'll have a little bit more detail about revenues on October 20th. We'll kind of finalize some more of the new Boston tuition and kind of see what that might look like, as well as maybe have some more idea from the state as far as what numbers they're going to be using to project out adequacy. But as we look at things for adequacy aid, what the state has done is instead of kind of voting on it every year or every 2 years or every 3 years what the increase might be, they've gone to a 2% increase each year, which does allow us to kind of predict a little bit better before they give us the numbers what it will be. So you can see on the slide what we get for each student for an adequate education from the state is $4,350.95. So every student that kind of walks through the door, that's how much we get from the state to provide that adequate education. You can see that other students now qualify for more because they might most likely have additional services, whether that be a student who is identified with special education. Any identified student then gets an additional $2,228.54, as well as if we're trying to assist more with a student that might have free and reduced lunch, and then English language learners. So you can see where we're expecting it to be, and then what the state does is they project out our ADM, which is what we'd be multiplying that by, as well as our amount of students for free and reduced and other things like that. So in good news, the state now has a minimum requirement of reimbursing us 80% for special education aid. So not necessarily the 100% which we're eligible for. So if we go back to last year, we were eligible for $760,000 of special education aid. So that again is for students whose costs 3.5 times the average student cost. And then the state reimburses us above 3.5%, up 3.5 times, 80% of that, and then above 10 times, 100% of that. So it is a lot of times your students who are out of district placements. So we were eligible for $760,000 last year. The state reimbursed us 66%, so for about $504,000. If they reimbursed us 80%, that would have been another $100,000. So not quite to what we'd be eligible for, but it is a step in a better direction because it just kept on decreasing each year that the state was paying us as well as every other school. So that is some good news that it's gone back up. If we go to the next slide, we can see a little bit more specific about the MST or the vocational school for our students. So when we receive an invoice, which is twice a year, we are invoiced on 25% of the tuition rate for that. So we send in 25% into Manchester in January, February, and we send in another 25% in kind of June and July. And that's historically what school districts have ended up paying totally. But recently, the amount that the state has allocated for CTE is not enough to cover all of the students. So we've seen an increase before this year. Our students kind of bumped up a little bit after COVID, as well did many other students across the state, which is a great thing for the state because we are looking to kind of promote and have students and, stay in the state and take part in the job education in the state as well. So now, last year, what happened was that we got an additional bill to fulfill the state's part of it, which they did not pay to Manchester for our students to go there. That additional amount was at $217,000. So instead of our 25%, we ended up paying 57% of the total cost. So there is, under our understanding, no plans to change this as of right now. It's a known in the state that there is a shortfall, but we do not have any identification of any plans to change that. So for this year, which would have been our final bill would have been from last year's students, we have encumbered $240,000 from last year's dollars, knowing that we are going to be assessed more in that. But what we're looking to do is to move forward with a budget for more because of our expectation of paying more for each of the students as well. So the next slide gives us a little bit more information on.
And, go ahead, Jenny.
I don't understand. I hear a lot about pushing or having schools have more trade opportunities for kids. So I don't understand why the state is decreasing their contribution to schools offering trade opportunities to kids if it's something that so many people are looking for instead of, like college opportunities or, you have like academic kids and you have trade kids and you need to do both of them. But I hear a lot of people saying, we need to get back to some trades. We need plumbers, we need electricians. They make good money too. Why aren't we offering those things in our school? So why is the state decreasing their contribution to trade schools? when
It kind
they
of
feel
defies
that they're
logic,
so
doesn't it?
important.
So,
Yeah.
and let's look at recent history. So the state of New Hampshire adopts a 2-year budget. In that budget, they did not add any additional money for CTE. They cut. So we're getting less money. So during an environment where, you're right, we need trades, we need young people to go into all manner of the trades, and they are very well-paying jobs. So why the state is not seeing this as an opportunity to invest in the youth of New Hampshire, I have no idea. Because it's more money. And it's politically expedient to just cut money to public schools, and there's no outcry about it. So here we are, we had a $217,000 bill last year. I haven't heard from anybody about that. State's not doing anything. And they just passed their 2-year budget. So there's going to be zero increase in that over the next 2 years. So your point is well taken, Ginny. It defies logic. And I think that your budget is a representation of what you believe in. So if you believe in vocational programming, then put money to support it. The state clearly has not done that.
And I think you have to have a program that hits all kids, because not everybody is going to do really well in academics, but you also have to do other things that keep kids involved and are educated, and they come out with a job or a career at the end. So I just don't understand the disconnect between it. And I think it's important maybe for us to really make sure our taxpayers realize that when they're thinking that their kids should have opportunities in trades and wood, I hear about, well, we used to do wood shop and we used to do, home ec and that kind of stuff. I think they should know that all of a sudden, at the last of last year, we get a $200,000 bill because the state's not helping with that. And I don't think people know that are thinking, why isn't the school doing anything about this problem that we have with the trades? And we're trying to help, we're trying to give kids the advantages that they need, but it comes at a huge cost at tax time. And I don't think people realize exactly that whole thing that's going on here when they vote for budgets.
Agreed.
Jenny. Go ahead, Doug.
All right, so next slide talks about the GAP, or the Adult Education Program. So this was funding which we had received for years from the state, as well as other districts in the state have received adult education program funding. The state pretty much cut most of that last March. They did bring back $400,000 for 1 year, and we're sort of calling it seed grant money. So it's a known 1-year grant. So we received a little over $61,000 from the state in fiscal year '25. Between GAP and the seed grant, we're going to receive $23,441 this year, and then next year we expect to receive less than $1,000 in the GAP grant. So this year,
If I can just interrupt, look at the difference between FY '25 to FY '27. We went from receiving $61,000 to support some of our most at-risk students. These are students that have missed credits, that they've had disruptions in their lives. Maybe the learning style wasn't commensurate with them, but this is opportunities for kids to pass classes, to take courses and get credits for it. We went from $61,000 to $1,000. $60,000 cut to that program in one swoop, which basically eliminates the program if we don't budget for it.
so we've talked about this at a previous board meeting, and what we decided to do for this year, because again, we didn't know this going into this year, we didn't budget to absorb that difference in that GAP funding, was we did the core of GAP. So we did distance learning facilitator, so that might be for Edmentum, to kind of get kids credit on a course that they might miss or have failed. We had an English teacher, math teacher, science teacher, social studies teacher, and we had a high-set student support specialist. So what we're also adding into fiscal year '27 is getting back to a welding art class as well as a wood engineer. So bumping it up a little bit to see if that's the direction that the school board and the town wants to go, knowing that it's not just a handful of kids who benefit from this. In fiscal year '25, there was 142 kids who took part in it. 30 got their GAP diploma, and 3 completed their high set.
And just to make sure everyone knows, the high set is the old GED. That's like the high school equivalency exam.
Go ahead, Jared.
I know we're talking more budget, and my question's more a matter of policy, but because we're losing funding for these GAP programs, is there a way that we've thought about maybe implementing changes on how we conduct it? So if those students have failed, instead of taking an entire class and paying for that entire class, have them take an assessment test at the end? I guess, is that an option that we can do to try to reduce costs here?
Yeah, so I think we've started to have some conversations about what do we do if we don't have the funding for this program. I think the high school is pretty open to those kinds of things. We haven't gone into a full approach of if we don't have the GAP, that would be kind of our next step if the GAP is not supported through the budget process.
Go ahead.
Well, knowing that we always do continuous improvement, is this one item that we would be looking at regardless if we get the GAP funding or not, to say, how can we do this better and ensure that our students are getting, the education and the credit that they deserve?
Yeah, so we did a pretty big overhaul of that program about 3 years ago. I would take that feedback back for Mr. Grisone to give it some thought at the high school, what else can be done. It's really, this is a program that showed that it was successful. These adult programs have existed in New Hampshire for over 20 years. So, a lot of non-traditional kids that maybe weren't earning enough credits, to give them more pathways is a proven strategy. So to take that funding away from kids, many thanks to the House Finance Committee that appears to be the one that eliminated the funding.
Yeah, and the good thing about when we talk about those math or English classes, they tend to be more in the afternoon, evening. So some of these students kind of work during the day and take the classes in the evening. There's a little bit less students per teacher, and the teacher's goal is always to make it a little bit more hands-on and student-based. So the students definitely have found a lot more success in that approach than they have maybe in other approaches that have happened. So it's just that kind of, that understanding that we welcome all students in, and we want all students to succeed as well. So the last thing we have, the next slide, is that some grants that we don't talk a lot about would be the special ed or the IDEA grant, as well as title grants. Those are grants that we get a set amount of money in from the state or the Fed, and we can only spend that set amount of money. So none of that is raised locally by taxpayers. So it is something that we account for in a very specific way. We have a budget for in a very specific way, but during these times and with the budget committee and as people go in to vote, they're truly not necessarily voting on those funds, those grants, because those are things that we're just eligible for, and we're eligible to spend them in a certain way as well. But we wanted to make sure that people knew that there were other funds that do come into the district every year that we benefit from having as well. So another specific thing that's been since 2021 has been what's called a SAFE grant, and that's to kind of look at how can we make schools more safe. So Goffstown has done an unbelievable job of qualifying for SAFE grant money from kind of knowing where the other couple schools that I've worked at. I thought we did a very good job, but Goffstown is just kind of unbelievable, having all their ducks in a row, knowing what they want to focus on, knowing what's important, and making sure that they're maximizing the money that they can get back. We have, through the work of Steve and other people, we know what we want to apply for when the SAFE grant opens up tomorrow, the next day, a week. It's supposed to open up pretty soon, but we have everything ready to go, because sometimes it's been a first come, first serve type of grant. So if you're entering in multiple things and it takes you a couple days to get it in, you're passed, because other school districts have done it day one or at least day two type of thing. So our goal is always to get it in day one. So there's a lot of work that's already been going on with that between school administration, facilities, and IT. And we're going to put in for that grant again, and hopefully we'll keep on seeing benefits from that. Next slide we have is our capital reserve.
Oh, sorry, Retta, go ahead.
Just a quick question about the grants. So with the IDEA and the title grants, are those federal grants?
Yes.
Yep.
All federal grants.
And is there any concern or indication that there might be a change in the amount of money that's given out over the next year or so?
I think anything that involves the federal department is up in the air right now. I think at this point, what we believe to be true is that our IDEA funding and our title programs are safe. At least for the current fiscal year, we believe them to be intact. We don't really know beyond that. But we do rely on these funds. So Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, we access all of those programs. And the special education grant is very significant. I've not heard anything about IDEA funds potentially being cut. Title I appears to be safe from what we've heard. Title II, Title III, Title IV, we're not sure. We're not sure. So next year, I think it's quite possible that there could be more volatility and there could be cuts, but we'll have to wait and see.
Go ahead, Doug.
Our next part is capital reserve fund, or otherwise known as the CRF. So a lot of times what that happens is there's a warrant article that, that the town votes to put unexpensed money into the CRF, and then the school board is authorized to expense that money. So you can see a recent history of that and where our current balances as far as our expected CRF balance. And then if we take away $50,000 twice, because we're trying to save up each year for known turf replacement or repairs for the GHS turf field, you can see that our working balance is at $128,000. So as we move into next year, so if we go to the next slide, there are several different things that we've identified that could benefit because of the age of it. We're all sitting here with tables that kind of sway back and forth and chairs that do the same thing. So you can see a little bit further down, the second one, GHS replacement of tables and chairs in this media center type of thing. So it should have included the word media center in there too, for the replacement of tables and chairs, as well as the carpet here the carpet in the main office, which has been there since I believe it has started. So there's a drain issue by the metal shop, and then we go back, now we're at the middle school, some carpet in their media center, carpet in the band room, correction of drainage near the fifth grade wing, and then additional $50,000 holds for the turf replacement, as well as, you know, when you have facilities this large, there are things that are known that could happen, and there are things that are unknown that could happen as well. So we have aging equipment in each of the buildings. When we did the EMC municipal lease, that took care of a chunk of equipment, but not all of the equipment. So what we're going to be asking for as of right now is probably a warrant article for another $300,000 to go in, to try to be a little bit consistent with that 300,000, chip away at some of that, maybe all of it, maybe not, but kind of chip away at some of the smaller projects, as well as kind of keep that reserve at a decent spot as well.
Go ahead, Jared.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Doug, I know that the next Budget Committee meeting, you're going to be doing a tour of projects here at the high school. I'm assuming that that's what we are seeing up on the screen right now.
So it is actually not what we're seeing on the screen, because that is money which the district already either has or will have voted by the town in a way with, so it's not necessarily something that the budget committee kind of oversees. They, you know, we communicate with them type of thing, but what they're gonna give a tour of actually is the outside facilities. So if people were to do a Google Earth at our high school, and they did the same type of Google Earth at a similar sized high school, they would see probably a lot more fields and a lot more parking. So we know we have a shortage of parking here, and we know we have a shortage of fields in the case that we don't own any baseball fields that are high school, you know, kind of dimension fields. So our staff is going to take the budget committee outside for a walk just to kind of see what some of our issues are and start talking about some of the solutions. But this is not that we're trying to hide anything from the budget committee, because that's not it, but this is not through kind of that taxation of new dollars type of thing.
Go ahead, Jared.
I would recommend we show these to the Budget Committee.
Yeah.
Because that is directly what they're going to be recommending or not recommending for the $300 CRF.
Yeah.
As well as if we need to do a review of the middle school, I recommend that we show them those items as part of it.
Yep.
Yeah, so they'll start in this room. So when they call their meeting to order, they'll be in this room. We can highlight everything in terms of the carpeting, the furniture replacement, which is 30 years old, all of that. And to Jared's point, if there was interest of the Budget Committee to go take a look at these 3 projects that are listed on this, we could certainly coordinate that as well.
Thanks, Jared. Go ahead, Doug.
So at this point, I think we would pause again, because we're going to turn it over to Mrs. Kohler in a bit, but if anyone had any other further questions about things that have gone over at this point, or things that they want us to kind of look into more before our next meeting.
I don't see anything.
All right, great.
Okay. It's all you. Great. I'm not sure who's driving. There we go. So up on the screen for those that are watching at home, and I know that Doug had mentioned earlier that our website is going through some transformation right now as we go over to our new website. But under the curriculum tab, we do put information out about our longitudinal achievement data for all of our buildings. Right now, up to our 23-24 year, all of our data is up there. And after we present our 24-25 data at CNE in November, we will then update the information on the website so that people at home can see the data from all of our schools. So I just wanted to mention that before we get started today. So the board will remember, as we're going forward here, I'm not sure who's driving.
Just tell me when you want the next slide.
There you go, next slide. Sorry, I wasn't sure who was driving the presentation. If the board will remember, after the 23-24 school year, Bartlett was labeled from the Department of Education as a TSI school, and that stands for Targeted Support and Improvements.
And that is because we had a subgroup at Bartlett that basically wasn't making the grade and was low in comparison to other elementary schools throughout the state. So the graph that you're seeing in front of you is for language arts, and the one on the left is for our 3rd grade students, and the one on the right is our 4th grade students. That first maroon bar in both columns is our data from the 23-24 school year. The blue bar graph is the 24-25 school year, and the green bar shows the state averages from last year as well. So you can see in the area of language arts, in 3rd grade, we went from 37% proficiency in the 23-24 school year to 54% proficiency. That is a significant gain. Again, when you're looking at our 4th grade data, we went from 27% proficient to 52% proficient in one school year. If you go ahead to our next slide and looking at our math data over at Bartlett, you're going to see the same story. We went from 39% proficient in 3rd grade in a 23-24 school year to 52%. And then in 4th grade from 29% proficiency to 50%. And that doesn't happen by mistake. That's strong leadership, that's teachers who are laser focused on instruction, and all of the supports that Suzanne and Darcy put in place to make sure that we were making gains at Bartlett. So I really wanted to highlight that for all of you today. And again, you're going to get a much bigger picture at CNE when we bring all of our data. But it's truly remarkable work that's happening over at Bartlett. So much so that the department reached out to us, and Suzanne and I are actually presenting at the Assessment and Accountability Conference tomorrow morning to highlight all of the things that we did over at Bartlett to help raise achievement. So I'm incredibly proud of the leadership over at Bartlett and of our teachers and the work that they've done. So in looking at that, I then, Steve, if we can go to the next slide, wanted to talk about Goffstown High School. Because as we think about data, all of our data is important. However, what we really most care about is that end result. What are the skills and what is our achievement for our students who are leaving Goffstown High School? And some of the things that I'd like to highlight is at Goffstown High School last year, we had 398 AP exams administered. We had an 88% pass rate with a score of 3.8 as our average. We had a lot of different recognitions, 22 as AP Scholars, 12 as AP Scholars with honor, and 42 with AP Scholars with distinction, which is pretty remarkable when you're looking at AP stats. Our SATs continue to be strong over at Goffstown High School. We also had one semifinalist for the National Merit Scholarship Program, which is the top 16,000 nationally. Less than 1% of students get that recognition. We also had 3 commended students, which means they were in the top 50% nationally. Heading to our next screen, thank you. Looking at other highlights for Goffstown High School, we had 16 students who were recognized for All-State Music, 11 for the Scholastic Art Award, 19 students who received the New Hampshire Seal of Biliteracy, and for those at home, that acknowledges students who demonstrated proficiency in English and at least one other language. For competitions and honors, we got first place at the New Hampshire Envirothon. You'll remember that our advisor came and did a presentation last year because they were able to go and present this summer. We got first place in the first robotics pine tree competition, and then one of our teachers, Jason Shea, was picked as the Krista McAuliffe Sabbatical Award winner. So some pretty significant things over at Goffstown High School. Stephen? In looking at our co-curriculars and clubs and athletics, this is a big part of who we are beyond our achievement. Because don't forget, for some of our students, getting excited to come in for geometry might not be something they're excited about, but for a number of our students, what we offer for co-curriculars, what we offer for a wide range of coursework, what we offer for athletics is what gets them to school every day. So right down to our elementary school, you can see the amount of students that are involved in our programs. We have had a significant uptick in our number of students that are involved in strings programming, both at Maple Avenue and at Bartlett, which we're extremely proud of. Last year, we moved our strings program over at Bartlett to after school, and we actually had an increase in the amount of students participate when we moved it outside of school hours. Over at Mountain View, we have 15 athletic teams, 13 clubs. Last year, our boys A basketball team were the Division I champions. We had over 473 students who are involved in our music ensembles, which is band, chorus, or strings. Over at Goffstown High School for athletics, our wrestling team was a state champion. Our boys tennis team were also state champions, and we had 36 clubs and co-curriculars offered with over 375 students participating. And those are just for co-curriculars, not including our athletes. A number of our students that are involved in athletics and co-curriculars are involved in multiple activities, not just one. So as thinking about where we want our students to be at the end of their 4 years of Goffstown High School and their K-12 continuum with the Portrait of the Graduate, all of these things are really critical. So when you're thinking about the budget, we just wanted to make sure that you had this information in front of you of the gains we're making. Please know there is still a lot of work to be done. We're not happy with any of our data. We're always reaching for the stars. But I did want to just take a few minutes and highlight that to you as you're looking and thinking about the budget.
I think Wendy's presentation also just highlights the return on investment. So again, lowest K-12 costs in the entire state, and look at the achievement results that we're getting for it. So we continue to be proud of what we're offering, and we think that for the taxpayers, we think that the Goffstown School District is a really good return on investment. So with that, we will now shift into the district budget presentation lines with Mr. Todd.
So we'll have the district and then we'll go into the school. So what does the district mean as we look at their budget? It could be the transportation, whether that be regular ed or special ed, substitute teachers, professional development for the teachers, summer programming, as well as other out-of-district special ed student costs, and things like what the shared services that we might have with the town of Goffstown, whether that be GTV or Parks and Rec. So as we go more specifically into what constitutes the 2026, 2027 district budget, we start with our current one, which, if we go to the next slide, you'll see is $12,990,067. So as we look towards fiscal year '27, our base or our default is $13,198,411. And then we have new of $303,671 for a total requested of $13,502,082. So the difference between the requested for fiscal year '27 and where we currently are now in fiscal year '26 is $512,015. So where does most of that come from? So the next slide, we'll start with some things in regular education, and we can actually see, sometimes the budget's going to go up, sometimes the budget's going to go down. The first two we can see is actually reductions. The first one is retirement stipends. So each year, teachers will put in advance whether they're planning on retiring at the end of the year. My understanding is that they don't necessarily have to kind of follow through with that, but they have to put in by a certain amount if they want that payment in that first batch in July. So it's just depending on who puts in is how much money we're going to kind of reserve at that time. So we have a reduction just simply by the who's putting in for retirement and how much they're eligible for. So that reduction is just due to choice by the teachers. So that's $21,500. We also, as we talked about briefly before, there is a slight reduction in the New Hampshire retirement system, the rates that we have for that, as well as sometimes we have positions that don't become eligible as well. So there's a reduction of $8,344 for that. So our next slide, we actually continue reductions. So this is function 1200, which is special education. So for people who are looking along online and they were able to get past the spinning wheel, if you go all the way down to the end of the proposed budget, there is our budget codes. So when you see 1,200, as a function, you'll see that's identified as special education. So those budget codes are important today, but they'll become more important as the board kind of looks line by line through them. So you can see the first thing that we have here for out-of-district tuition is a reduction of $412,839. So this is part of the default budget. So we are black and white with the default budget. So we look at kind of who's identified or who's like on the path to be identified as an out-of-district placement. We don't put a lot of gray in there as far as like who might move in, who might move out type of thing. So this is a number that is where we are right now. If it changes before we kind of cement things, we would bring it back, whether that would be a good change or a bad change, because again, it's default. We don't have a choice whether to pay for it or not. So this cost also includes a 5% increase to the placements that the state has approved. But again, as we look at this reduction, it's due to less kids being in out-of-district placement. So the next one is professional services, and again, a reduction for special education of $43,000, bringing the fiscal year 27 proposed to $507,000 as well. So that is something which our special ed director kind of looks line by line. What services are we bringing in, whether it be Boothby or Ceresc? Do we need them? Do we need less of them? And then, because again, that goes into the default as well. So it's knowing the students that we have, knowing the ones that are going to graduate, and kind of the ones that are in preschool kind of coming up as well, and making as close as we can to an accurate thing with that. Sometimes you will see the professional services budget go up during the year, and then that's because we could not hire a speech and language pathologist, or we could not hire an OT, and we have to transfer the money from our salary pool to professional services. So, and therefore we're able to then hire contract out for that service. But that's kind of the shifting of money. But as we look into what we believe we're going to need for professional services next year, there is a reduction. So don't worry though, we do have some increases in case people were concerned. So the next slide, we can start seeing where there are some increases. So we have, might seem different that we have a reduction in the out-of-district tuition, but we have an increase in special education transportation. Partly that's because the increase in costs that keep happening every year, and that's also where what was budgeted last year, there might have been multiple kids going to the same district out-of-district placement, but next year, we're not expecting that to happen. So again, we're trying to match what the actuals are going to be. And it's not easy at any time budgeting, 12 months or 16 months out, but it's also, if you're talking about an individual and whether they might be at a certain out-of-district placement, it becomes even harder at times as well. But that's where we are right now as far as actuals and where we see it being for next year. See, the next increase is increasing our total payment for the EMC municipal lease, so to the yearly payment of $261,000. So in this year's budget, there was partially budgeted for that because the goal was to have, to be able to use more of the energy rebates that we thought that we were going to get back in excess of what they initially thought to make towards the first payment. And that happened. So, which went according to kind of plan, which is a good thing. But next year, those energy rebates are really to EMC, and what that does, it brings down our cost of what we owe EMC. We're done paying for EMC, so now we're paying for the loan. Rebates are kind of gone now at that point, and now we have to kind of bump up to make sure that we pay for that total loan cost. But again, this is important because what we're doing is we're taking care of the town's most expensive buildings. Every year we got to kind of, or every several years, we have to kind of chip away, whether it be small projects or large projects. And the EMC one was a little bit larger of a project, but a worthwhile project, and one that will be kind of paying back over that 17 years. Next one you can see is that the SAU services. So again, this is that cost share between Goffstown and New Boston. This says pending because while we're working on the Goffstown budget now, as we work out on our 3 budgets, Goffstown, New Boston, and SAU, Goffstown is the first budget that we work on and we present. So the SAU board hasn't decided on the SAU budget, nor have they even been presented it yet. So that's why it says pending, because it depends on what the SAU board does with the budget. Next one on there you can see is regular ed transportation. So we are underneath a contract for actually, I think, into the end of this next year. So there's a set increase, I believe, which was about 5.9%. That brought us up that $72,000. So any questions on this slide before we go to the next?
Go ahead, Jared.
Just from the last 3 slides, I want to make sure I'm clear on this, Doug, because we're always saying that FY '27 proposed. So 3 of these reductions would impact the default, and the remaining line items are impacting the new spend or the proposed budget.
Actually, if I look at the reductions, actually all 4 would, because we don't have a choice on New Hampshire retirement, so that should say default next to it
That
as
should
well.
say default as well?
Yeah.
Okay, so the default's being reduced by at least those 4 line items, and then this slide's really saying these are the increases that would be part of the proposed budget, not the default budget.
So the first one, special education transportation.
Oh, that would be default
That's
as well.
default. Regular ed is actually default. Municipal lease is not default. And SAU services are default as well, so I apologize for that.
So I'm sorry, the last 3 are proposed
The
column or
only one
default
that's
budget?
not default on the increases is the EMC municipal lease.
Thank you.
So thank you for asking that. I'll move on to the next slide if there's no other questions.
Jared is completely right. So if the special education costs go down, that also correspondingly would bring down the default budget.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
want to try to make it clear in my head what's
Yeah.
part of the
No,
default
you-
versus the
you
proposed.
got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so we separated out IT or technical education a little bit, because again, this was something for at least since last year that the district's been talking about bumping up a little bit. When we have a student come to school, we expect to give them a desk, we expect to give them pens, paper type of thing. We should have some of those same type of expectations with computers where we are now in 2025. So we are not a district that's one-to-one, but what we have been able to do with the support of the school board and the taxpayers is we're now at a 1 cart, for example, per team at the middle school, which is a much bigger difference than having a 1 cart or multiple carts that any team can kind of take out from. Because if you're 1 cart per team, you have more ownership of that cart. You can work with your teammates, which you see on a daily basis, and you communicate on a daily basis to really kind of factor out who's going to use it and when. And the reason why we want to kind of keep moving towards, IT that's at the right rate is that there's a lot that teachers can do. Teachers aren't going to go away. What teachers provide for kids is unbelievable. But when I taught math, I could not correct my 25 students' papers all at the same time. If I gave them a question to work on, I couldn't correct that all at the same time. But what we can do is we can bring in, some products, which you'll see later, like a product like IXL, where students working on it, they get instant access to their feedback, whether they did something right or wrong. And that actual feedback is one of the best practices that actually that grows student learning. So we have to have that combination of that human touch in the classroom, where you have that expert in that knowledge, you have that connection with the students, but we have to make sure we're having enough technology to supplement that as well. It's like any other business that is bringing in technology to kind of assist where they are. So there is some bumping up of technology that we need to continue to do, but we see it being not only a benefit, but also as we talk about kind of, other things that negative things that can come from technology as a way to kind of keep safeguarding the district as well. We do a good job of kind of safeguarding the district, but there's been some things that we can bump up a little bit more, and then there's some things that have kind of fallen off to the wayside as we try to kind of have used the money that's been budgeted for. So you can see the first thing on here is district IT salaries. This is kind of showing up more in a bigger chunk because, there was that realization that there was a lot of people in our IT department that were making a lot less than other IT departments, not only within different districts, but also if they went out to the professional world and had the same skills. So what our goal is to retain those people because they do have choices on where they go. So there's been bump ups in those salaries, and there's going to continue to be kind of bump ups, hopefully, in those salaries. And as Superintendent Bakke talked about, there have been some new positions not going into next year, but coming into this year, which kind of flow into this number as well. The next thing we have on there too is the district IT professional services. So as we look at this is for such things as a security audit, which is state mandated, so that got bumped up by $7,500. It's for adding in, I don't know if, Steve, do you want to kind of talk a little bit?
Well, that would include like the penetration testing,
Yeah.
some of the cybersecurity analysis. This would also be the line that Stephen would use if he had to do any engineering. So when he's doing things in the network and he needs to bring in engineering consultants to help the configuration.
Yeah, it's those types of services. What we have found was the existing line was woefully under budgeted compared to what we were actually spending. And this was not to bring it up to what we spent last year, but to take a step, getting us closer to to the actuals.
Great, and I think we're doing the same thing with the next thing, which is the non-capital software. So again, we're trying to bump up with known costs as far as where they are for such things as, I think that's where our office licenses are, right?
Yeah, so what we have seen is software costs for subscription services are increasing at a higher rate than inflation. I have some vendors who have jumped 10, 15, I think one of them 18% in their cost from year to year. And it's not like I can go through and turn the service off because it shuts down the complete functionality across the district. So we've tried to reevaluate what we have for software, kind of weed out the stuff that isn't being used, but also budget for the items that are. We have some software applications that the state has been funding from year to year. Discovery Education is a good example of it, which this year was going to be, well, we're not going to pay for it, and then a few weeks ago it was, and they gave us what our actual number is going to be for next year, and we didn't budget anywhere near close to paying for that. So those numbers were put in to accommodate for that as well. So services that we've had going back for 5, 6 years that people have come to rely on, that they will continue to have those services.
And the last one, again, which has been underfunded, is the district IT maintenance.
And that's just to kind of keep everything running. The projected life expectancy for IT equipment is typically 5 to 7 years. We have a habit of trying to keep things going with basically duct tape and chewing gum, because I have infrastructure that is 3 to 4 times its projected life, and when it dies, it's really expensive to replace. And we're trying to keep everything running to the best of our ability. And given its age, old equipment costs more to keep alive than new equipment.
So you'll see some of the IT increases here, but you'll also see them as we go to each of the schools as well, as we look at laptop leases and software products for there as well. So I believe that is our last slide for the district budget.
Go ahead, Shane.
Thank you. I think we talked about it maybe 2 years ago now, but has there been any consideration of moving to us being a one-to-one district based on the fact that we do have the personal electronic device law now that I've heard from a couple of different parents that have expressed that there's not necessarily a lack of technology, but there's a difficulty of accessing it and kind of maintaining it throughout the day. So I think we have technology available, but I think the consistency of it, and I know that many districts are one-to-one now, so I don't know if we've looked at the cost of that or what would go into that.
We've looked at it, I think, for the last 4 to 5 years, it has a very significant startup cost. Doug and I sat down and tried to crunch out numbers just to maintain our current fleet on a 6-year replacement cycle. I think we estimated we needed close to $1 million a year in replacement equipment. A 1-to-1 program, you're replacing the equipment for students every 4 instead of every 6 years, so it does drive a much higher replacement cost. It's a matter of funding that project because it does have such a significant startup cost, and it has such a very significant maintenance cost because your repairs, as soon as the devices go home, the amount of breakage increases, unfortunately, which drives up the repair and maintenance cycle.
So I would share, that is an ongoing discussion that we've been having for the last several years. And I would probably encourage us to wait until Mrs. McCann is here presenting the budget to have a more thoughtful conversation about it. But we have had a lot of conversations about going to a 1-to-1 environment for the high school. And there are pros and cons to doing so, and not the least of which is the cost associated with them. But there are other models. For example, there are some school districts that require parents to buy Chromebooks. So there are different ways that you can evaluate it. And we've had a lot of ongoing conversations over the years of the pros and cons to going 1-to-1. We've also had that same conversation with the middle school as well.
Yeah, and I've heard that some of the newer Chromebooks, the lifespans are longer now, so you can actually kind of recycle them.
The length that Google supports the hardware is longer.
Yeah.
They've moved from 4 years to like 8.
Yeah.
The hardware still disintegrates after 4 years. And so it's, yes, you can keep them running, assuming that they're not going home and that they're being taken care of carefully, like they work great in a home environment where it sits on the desk and doesn't move.
Yeah.
It'll last you those 5-6 years. But in reality, laptop batteries are good for 3 years. 4 is a stretch.
Some food for thought.
Yes, thank you,
Agreed.
Shane.
Okay, thank you, Stephen.
Yep.
So we'll keep rolling here, and we'll invite Mrs. Bizzarro to come up and talk to us about the food services budget. Megan?
Hello.
Hi, folks. Good to see you all. I did ask Doug earlier if there was a stopwatch, if there was a prize, if we were quick. He didn't really answer. So when you're ready, Stephen, there we go. So for this year, FY '26, we have a budget of $1,460,716, and we are requesting $1,547,079 for a difference of $84,363, and we'll get into why it's such a large difference shortly. It will be probably a theme you will hear throughout the next little bit of time. As most of you know, we are an enterprise fund, which means that we can keep money up to 3 months of operating worth of expenses. And currently, at the end of June 30, 2024, we had $340,992 in the bank. And our change, we did have a decrease, a net decrease of $26,270 to bring us down to $314,722 at the end of last year at June 30, 2025. We use that money for capital costs, operating losses, those types of things. You can see here, last year we spent $22,000 in capital costs for multiple warmer replacement and some major compressor work here at the high school where we actually had to shut the unit down for several days, move food all over the place, and the facilities team was fabulous in helping us to do that. This year, actually over the 3-day weekend, the middle school is going to have to shut down their interior freezer for more compressor work. So that'll be about $7,000 this year. And also the new serving line that we have at Mountain View will come out of this year, and was about $39,000. So those are the types of things that we are looking at using our fund balance for. Ovens, dishwashers, those types of things, all big tickets. So, and as all of you know, we run just like a business in academia. The expectation is that we bring in enough revenue to cover all of our expenses. And if we don't, then we do have the fund balance to help make that work. We are not in the situation that New Boston is in, where that has flipped, where we're not able to generate enough revenue to cover costs. Goffstown is large. We have 2 buildings where we sell a la carte, so we have lots of places to find extra revenue, if you will, to help the cause. In terms of our costs going up, our next slide is our food, milk, and commodities. In FY26, we have $619,330, and for next year, we are proposing $653,429. We do receive about $80,000 worth of commodities, and that is an offset. It's recorded as an expense as well as a revenue, so that's a net zero. Our food is, at this point, we're anticipating roughly a $35,000 increase. We have had increased participation at Mountain View in the high school. The high school actually had a record on, I believe it was on Friday. They served 383 reimbursable lunches. They haven't hit that number in probably 3 to 4 years. And they also did another 200 servings of chicken that I brought down to Maple Ave when we had the evacuation from the kitchen. So we had a real good teamwork working there with 2 buildings, making sure that everybody was fed, and it worked beautifully. We are seeing, just a little note, we're actually seeing an increase in meals served this September over last September in both breakfast and lunch. Lunch is up 35 reimbursable meals a day, and breakfast is up 13. Congratulations to our teams. It's because of them, because of their smiles, and how dedicated they are to your students. Next slide is our staffing overview. The biggest piece, this is the same slide as last year. We're not anticipating any changes in staff at this time. So we're going to be all the same in terms of FTEs. Next slide, please, Stephen. Labor costs, this is where our biggest increase came in this year. Kind of took Doug and I a little bit by surprise, so we dug in a little bit more. This is year 4 of the contract with the support staff. Year 4 has some big well-deserved raises in it for your paras, secretaries, food service. I believe maintenances and custodians are part of that group as well. And that's driving the bulk of our increase. This current year, we're at $733,681, and we're proposing for $776,095, which is an overall increase of approximately $42,000. And these are it's all contractual. There's nothing this is what we need to do. And that actually brings me to the end.
So Meg, in terms of...
More pictures on the slide.
I know, yes, I do need to get better pictures. Not that those are bad, they're great pictures, but.
So for your staffing, there's no increases in the staffing levels?
Correct. We are gonna go, just like we are, so. Any other questions, folks?
Go ahead,
I was just curious with the price increase, I know we're only 2 months into the school year, but have you seen that be something, like is there decreased participation at elementary? You've seen just
It's up.
increases in participation? I think
The only elementary, and I looked at, that has gone down at this point is Maple, and some of that I think is because our first graders, I believe, are the largest group. And first grade tends to be a little shyer to come into the lunch line, but Bartlett is up very little bit. Mountain View's up 21 meals a day, and lunches a day, and the high school is up 30 meals a day. And that's in one lunch. So if you want to have some whiplash, come to lunch. Watch the crew go. Woo! They're fast.
So I know a lot of times this is like bigger picture as we look at these numbers, but something that I know Megan does is she looks at, the cost of the food that we are providing, as well as the markup for it as well. So there's a lot of thought that goes behind, okay, what are we serving? What do we get for profit on it, but what else is it also quality for the students as well? So she spends a lot of time analyzing the numbers, but then also going back to the fact that it's the students that we're feeding and the students that we want to do well in school too. So we're not sacrificing the quality of the food, but we're also emphasizing the profit of the food as well. So it's a lot of knowing the students, knowing what they want, knowing what they like, knowing how much things cost, and then kind of putting it all together, which I found impressive working with Megan, so I want to thank her for that.
Thanks, Doug.
Agreed.
Any questions, comments for Megan? I guess not.
Okay.
Thank you, Megan.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, so now we might pause and see what the board would like to do. So it's 8:20. Mrs. Stoyle is chomping at the bit. She looks like she's about to spring up to the seat as we speak. She's got her stuff all ready to go. We do have 2 non-public items tonight, but if the board would like consensus, keep going.
Yeah, especially
All right.
since she's ready.
Oh, so not only is she ready, I think Mrs. Pishka is also ready, and I believe Mr. Demers is also ready. So if it's the board's pleasure, we are happy to keep going with the elementary presentations this evening. As I said, we do have 2 non-public matters. I don't anticipate that they would be overly long.
Okay, well, let's start with Glen Lake.
So we'll welcome Kathy and Carol Donovan. Come on up.
And as they come up, I'd like to say, Superintendent Balke talked about like 80% of our dollars go towards our staff. So that means like when I'm sitting down with the administration, they have a lesser piece of that pie. But they also knew kind of our goals this year, which was to kind of keep putting money towards the staff, as well as put money towards IT and put money towards facilities. So, the money that they had control over, I kept on sitting down with buildings and they kept coming in at negative. So you might see that their budgets might be negative or positive, but what they had control over, most of the buildings came back with spending less money. Because again, they want to kind of put the money in the hands of the teachers as well, as best as we can, and they kind of want to support the taxpayers too. So it was, I've worked at other places as BA and also just in other places. I don't think I've ever seen the majority of the schools kind of definitely kind of zero in and try to make it work as much as they have. So that was great to see.
Okay, so good evening. We'll start with our budget overview, and our current budget is $2,973,690. And the base for '27 is $2,948,202. New spending of $15,741. So our requested for FY 2027 is $2,963,943. And the difference between our requested and our 26 budget is $9,747 less. So.
Didn't you do this last year too?
Yeah, we went up by 100 last year.
$100. You come in with ridiculous budgets.
So you'll see later on, we'll get into what makes those numbers happen, but I think one of the things is that we did have a retirement that was an outgoing teacher that was replaced by a brand-new teacher, so that helped with some of our savings, as well as just some cutbacks in some lines, but there were some increases too that offset those, the savings a little bit, so. As I do each year, I like to make sure that the group here has a sense of what makes our school unique. It is a very different building in that we have a unique role in that we're bringing in students at age 3 who have special needs, and they're entitled to services starting on their 3rd birthday. So we do start with a class of 3-year-olds in September, but we keep adding to that with a class that will essentially be next year's 3-year-old class that are alongside them as we go. And so those students can enter at any point after their 3rd birthday. Some of them come right from early supports to us. Others come through Child Find, and they might come later on. We anticipate adding identified 4-year-olds through Child Find throughout the year as well. And based upon current trends, which it's always, we're really, we really struggle to try to nail down what our numbers are going to look like, but our best guess is that we'll add more than 20 identified preschoolers by June. Last year, our preschool grew by 15 students throughout the year. The 2 years prior, it grew by 16 and 21 respectively, so we feel like that 20 is about the wheelhouse. And we have brought in, we know we have a certain number that are waiting for their 3rd birthday already. And then we've got others that we get phone calls, I would say, almost weekly, with some weeks a lot more than that, with just parents who have concerns about their child's development, and we're here for them when they make that call. So that said, there's no mechanism to forecast the number or the unique needs of special education students who age into our program. And our program accounts for the high percentage of students with special needs at Glen Lake. And if you were focusing on those numbers and percentages in Doug's slides earlier, then you saw that at this time last year, the figure was 30% of our population was identified. We're at 40%. We are seeing increased needs. We are seeing increased complexity of needs, and I feel like that's something I've been talking about for some years now, but that is not a trend that we're seeing any change to. We continue to see more needs and more complex needs each year. So our projected class size for 26-27 preschool, we did do something a little bit different this year. We've had 4 preschool classes in base classrooms. This year, we shifted to 3 and pulled one of those teachers who still has a classroom, but it is an preschool resource room, so that students with those more complex needs who are having a hard time being with the larger class can have a full classroom that looks like a classroom, that they're able to work on those group learning skills before they're asked to do that alongside larger groups of peers. So it lets us pull kids for the times of the day that they can be the most successful. They're in their regular classroom, and for those times that they need more work on those skills, whether it be like a circle time or working in centers with other students, they have the ability to do that in a smaller group with still a community of other children. So we still have that 4th room, and it's still functioning. It's just not that that's not a base classroom. It's one that kids come and go from throughout the day.
Hang on one second, Mrs. Doyle. Go ahead, Jared.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mrs. Doyle, that sounds great. I know one of the core models that you've used is role model students alongside those.
Yep.
As part of that pull-out classroom? Are we still using role models in there, or is that exclusive to those needs?
So there are role models that are in the base classrooms, and then we would have, it would be something that we've put out in the past, permission slips to parents of typically developing peers, that we have students who are working on some play skills or something, would you be willing to have your child pulled out to be able to work with them in a smaller group setting? And we usually have most of our parents who are quite agreeable to that, and it's a special time for those kids as well, so that we're still introducing that, and to the degree that those kids are able to tolerate that.
That's great.
So,
Thank you.
Thanks, Jared.
thanks for the question.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so that changes, and I corrected it on the preschool line, I changed that to 3, but our total is 8, and I feel like that was maybe a happy error, because it just cued me to remember to explain all of that to you this year. It's a little shift for those 8 teachers. Their roles are, one of their roles is just a little different. Anything that you'd like to add on that?
No, I think that's also why you see the average class size a little bit larger. But we were really clear when we tried to get that extra environment that it would be something we would be able to have peer models a part of, because we want all of the kids to have some opportunities for meaningful inclusion.
And our plan with the DOE allows that. So this was something we had to apply to have approved by the DOE, and that allows for that. So our historical enrollment, the next slide. Okay, so if you look, our preschool numbers have been holding pretty steady. We have a smaller kindergarten class this year. It's also been fluctuating more, which is, we've had kids come in and go out, like several just, since school started even, just finding that things are a little less settled, it feels like, and a lot of movement, moving in, moving out, and just a little more than we've been used to. So it's been kind of a wild year trying to track that number as it kind of creeps up a little bit, and then it goes down, and then it creeps up and goes down. So we've been flirting around that 100 mark this year, so a little different. Let's see, there's just some asterisks about, we're now still looking for some 4-year-old role models. We did a little better this year with attracting 3-year-old peer role models to our program, so hopefully that's a trend that continues. So we still have some openings for 4s, but that's been something we've been trying to creep back up with since COVID. So. And again, we just don't have a mechanism to really predict each year. And we know that our October enrollment doesn't reflect our enrollment later in the year as we continue to add preschoolers. And let's see, and we do have additional students beyond these that come to us and just receive special education services, or even our MTSS services, and that's because home is considered a least restrictive environment under special ed law, so at this age level. So for parents whose schedules or whatever the reason is aren't wanting or able to make that work, they are able to bring their child in for those services, for an appointment with a speech pathologist or OT or whatever the case may be. All right, so the next slide. Our current enrollment is 162 students. You can see 2 of them right there. That's right, 2 of our current kindergartners right there. So we have 68 preschool students in 6 sessions. Last year we had 67 at this time, and that eventually grew to 81 by the end of the year last year. And our average September class size of 9+ for 3-year-olds, 13+ for 4-year-olds. For preschool, we know that that will increase during the year. And we currently have 94 kindergarten students in 8 sessions. And last year, we had 128 in 8 sessions. And right now, we're at 12 students in a class. We're not sure if this is, it seems right now like it might be a blip looking at what our enrollment has been in the past. I don't know. This was the COVID year that these kids were born, and so I don't know what it means for the future, but we do know that families struggle to make half-day kindergarten work more and more. So, next slide, please. Our staffing overview for what we have in our building right now. We have 4 kindergarten teachers, 3 preschool classroom teachers / case managers, and then this is the part that's bumped up 1 from last year. We have 7.9 full-time equivalent special educators and related service providers, and that bump up accounts for the extra, that teacher who's shifted into that resource room role. And we also moved 0.2 of the SLPA position to Glen Lake from Bartlett because our needs were more. So that shift, the 1 day at Bartlett was needed more at Glen Lake, so that
For a
shifted
speech
to us.
assistant.
Yep. And we also have 1.4 OTs. We share one of our OTs with Mountain View. 2 speech-language pathologists, a kindergarten special educator, and then 2 autism support teachers / special educators. One of those is the preschool classroom teacher for the resource room. And we have a 0.5 kindergarten interventionist who provides reading support. We share a counselor. We have 1 day a week of a school counselor. We share with Bartlett. We have 20 paras. Several of those are part-time. We have 1 nurse in total. Right now, that's being split between 2 people. We have 1 nurse with us for 3 days a week and the other for 2 days a week. We have 2 administrative assistants, 2 building administrators, and 1.5 custodians. So, next slide. The noteworthy changes, communications, there's a just over $7,400 increase to analog, internet, and dark fiber. And the IT laptop lease and rental is a $5,750 increase due to additions to the laptop lease and net addition to copier lease, maintenance, toner, and print management.
So you'll see kind of these 2 noteworthy changes in the other schools as well. This is kind of that IT bump up as well, which again is district-wide as well as by the school. So when Steve and I met, and then we kind of looked at the actuals for this year as well, that's kind of the increases. As we look at dark fiber, that is the fact that the internet comes into the high school, and then you pay per the mile per each school that it sends it out to. And then we have a new phone system, an internet system, which we were going to be forced to get kind of anyways, but there have been some benefits from that as well.
And then the next slide is just questions.
Go ahead, Jeannie.
Yeah. Mrs. Shore, did you used to have 2 nurses? Or am I thinking of the 2 ladies that shared?
We just have 2 ladies that share,
That share, okay.
and that's new this year. Well, yeah.
Okay. I must have seen both of them, or met both. I know I met both of them at one time.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
And the other question that I have is, where is your almost $10,000 of decrease coming from?
There were some little line decreases here and there, and there was nothing
But it could be salaries, it could be
major, and then
benefit
the
adjustments, somebody
decrease.
takes a different
That was, we
plan.
had the retiree that, and then in their place is now a brand-new teacher, so, I think
And are you
between those-
comfortable with staffing with the increased complexity of the students that are coming in? Because I know like one student can be really difficult, and you get those kinds of kids the beginning of the year, the middle, the end, whenever. And are you comfortable with your staffing and that you can take care of those increased complex kids?
And yes, and I will say the one thing that has changed this year, and we haven't gotten it in place, so I don't know that I added it to my staffing list. I have to go back and look. We're currently in the midst of hiring a registered behavior technician for Glen Lake. I think we're the last school to get one, so we're excited about it adding that, but that is in our current staffing and should have been included there, so I apologize for that. We're currently working to hire that person.
Thank you, Jenny. Anyone else, questions, comments for Mrs. Doyle? Oh, I guess not.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kathy and Carol. Keep going. Mrs. Pishka, come on up. Mrs. Creek, come on up.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
So we will be pretty quick as well. As Doug said, we did look through our budget, and we have some decreases, even though some of the technology did shift that to increases. Our current budget of $3,634,373. Our FY 2027 base, $3,678,368, with the new of $18,454. And the requested is $3,696,822, with a difference of $62,449. Change the next slide. So enrollment is pretty flat, as Brian's already mentioned. We fluctuate. Even this year, I think we have 2 more to that number, but it doesn't seem to move too much higher than 181. So based on what Kathy has shared with us coming from kindergarten, that's where we get that first grade number, along with our historical number from outside of Glen Lake, which can sometimes come in as late as August, that people enroll their students, even though we advertise and advertise. Steve, thanks. Projected class size, so I don't know if you remember in 23, 24, there were 12 classroom teachers. We went down last year to 10 that are in 10 classrooms. And so what that is doing is, one, bringing up the numbers just a tad bit, but still acceptable within class size policy, and good for kids. 15, 16, that's a good number for early grades. 22 for 3rd and 4th is just fine. So we will shift a teacher. Right now we have 3 first grade and 3 fourth grade teachers, and then in second we have 2 and 2. So we will have to move one of our existing teachers into a different grade level, which is unfortunate, for a teacher, because it is additional work to learn the curriculum and prepare. But I think teachers who enjoy a small school also realize that some of that happens too. Steve? So our overall staffing, and we are not making any requests. You can see those numbers. I would say the biggest challenge we have right now, it's been, I don't know, almost yearly, is trying to hire an art teacher for 2 days and a PE teacher for 1, even though it's 2 days up there. One of them, we share Mr. Brooks from Maple Avenue on Fridays, so we need to hire somebody for 1 day. And we were fortunate enough to meet a music teacher this year who was happy to do PE on Mondays. So that worked out really nice. So she's teaching 2 days of music and 1 day of PE. But that is a challenge to keep people in those positions. You know, you think, oh, maybe someone who's looking to retire and go part-time, but we don't keep them for very long. A brand-new teacher really can't afford to work just 2 days a week, so it is a tricky hire. But we have 2 wonderful people that we hired, one for art, one for music this year, and I'm really pleased that we were able to get them, and we're hoping to keep them. Next one, Steve. Thank you. So I'm going to turn this over to Darcy. We wanted to just focus on something that I think some people have visited the school and have seen this classroom, but we wanted to talk a little bit about it.
So this is our self-contained flex classroom, which was brand new last year. Last year, we had 2 students assigned to this classroom where they received 60% of their, or at least 60% of their modified curriculum in this space, where we support their instructional needs, their behavioral needs, communication needs, their sensory needs. This year, we have 2 students that are assigned to this classroom, and with about 2 or 3 others that access it on a regular basis for the same needs. They do their modified curriculums in here. They also attend some adaptive UA classes with their flex peers, and they spend the other part of that day with their regular ed classroom. So they'll go to lunch, recess, some specials, and spend some time in their buddy classrooms, we call them, that is at the same grade level to which they're assigned. It's been really successful program. I think it's really changed kind of the dynamic of the way we address behaviors and communication needs at Bartlett, so it's been a really positive change. One of our special ed case managers is assigned as the classroom teacher, but she also case manages and provides support for other students as well. And our OT and speech teachers spend quite a bit of time in there providing co-treating and doing some co-teaching with the case manager. And we also have an RBT that works in there as a registered behavior technician to support the paras that are in there with their students. We will have one of those students moving up to Mountain View next year, but then we have 2 students coming in from Glen Lake who I think we believe will really benefit from this program as well. So it's been a really positive addition to Bartlett, I think, last year, and it's really created a positive change.
If you want to do the last slide. So noteworthy changes, similar to Kathy, the laptop lease rentals, along with other copier lease and print management, communication, electricity went up. I don't know why that is, but I'm hoping we're turning off the lights when we're supposed to, Doug, but. Building maintenance, the playground fence that we've got, because we are in a, what I would call a city dwelling, we are real close to all of our neighbors, and so when our fences are damaged or when we need additional fencing, it's important to keep our space secure for students because we do spend as much time as we can outside, especially on beautiful days like today. Also replacement equipment. There's a walk-behind sweeper that we need to replace. And then propane is a decrease, and general supplies also a significant enough decrease that it's on this slide. So, like Doug said, we worked on what are our actuals and, what can we do without. Any questions?
Yeah, so again, definitely if we're looking at what they had control over, it would have been a negative decrease. But then once you add in kind of IT facilities, that propane should actually say natural gas. That was my mistake on there, so that's natural gas. So whether you're kind of budgeting for electricity, propane, natural gas, it can be one of the trickier things to budget for. I think we're at a better spot for electricity just because last year, the majority of our year, we had that rate locked in at a little under 10 cents, and we're at that same rate throughout fiscal year 27 as well. So we can kind of match it up with actuals. And electricity doesn't seem to kind of waver as much as, say, oil or propane, because again, we don't know if it's going to be a cold winter or warm winter or something like that. But electricity is not also just what you pay for the electricity. There's a delivery charge, there's demand charge because we're a bigger facility, there's stranded energy charge. There's about 9 different charges that go into an electric bill for a place as big as a school, which is different than if you're looking at your residential charge, which only has like 2 or 3 or 4 charges. So.
Thank you, Doug. Jared, go ahead.
Just looking at ending in 431 and 735, are those potentially eligible for CRF expenditures? Because if we're talking an existing fence that's getting replaced, I would think that may be a CRF item. I'm not sure about the replacement of equipment, but I would think that at least replacing existing equipment would be a CRF item that we might be able to pull off the budget of Fund 10.
I think fencing for sure. I think a piece of equipment.
I know.
Possibly, yeah. I think
I'm looking for those things that, if it comes down to it, what might we be able to move? And I don't know if those are 2 eligible items.
Fencing would be one that we could highlight, that we could come back to if we had to.
Yeah, and I think as we go to some of the other schools, some of the facilities are for larger pieces of equipment, which I think might qualify easier than a 3,000. I'm not saying 3,000 is like nothing, but I think it might. I like the idea, though, of kind of looking at different things that could qualify, because that gives us options, and options is always good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jared. Go ahead, Ginny.
Ms. Biska, I'm just curious. In this flex classroom, you said that some of the therapies happen. Do you have any self-contained classrooms where therapies can happen with just a student and their therapist? Or do all of your therapies happen out in the open with other people in the room as well?
The speech teacher and the OT teacher do have their own designated
Do they? Okay.
spaces. Yep. But they, instead of bringing the students over to them that are in this classroom, they might come in and treat. We also have a separate room in there that has like our sensory room with a swing and the squeeze machine and some other tools in there that they might treat a student or see a student in there. So there's a few spaces we use for those services.
Okay. Because I was just thinking, some of the therapies are kind of hard to do when you have other people around. I was just wondering if there's availability. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ginny. Go ahead, Jared.
I want to say thank you for the work that you've done, and take this opportunity just to show the increase in some of the scores that have happened that was highlighted earlier. So thank you for your leadership. Thank you for the value that you've added to that school system. I'm sure many others will share in that sentiment that I have.
Thank you, Jared. Well said. Anyone else? Questions?
And have a great
comments?
time tomorrow in your presentation.
Oh, yeah.
If I could get to bed sometime. It's 8:30, it's
Right on
already.
time. But that's awesome to be asked by the state.
Thanks.
All right. Okay. I think we're set.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Last one, Maple Avenue. Want to get that one finished?
Yeah, come on up, Mr. Demers and the team.
You gotta come up, especially you. Hi, everyone. Thanks for letting me go last. I will try to move quickly, as I think everyone's a little bleary-eyed. I have with me Jill Ryu, who's our Dean of Students, and Bridget Perry, who's our Special Education Facilitator. So Steve, you can skip right over that title slide, buddy. All right, so I don't have to read all the numbers to you. I think we're all capable of reading. But in FY27, those new proposed dollars there are $20,489. Similar to what Doug had mentioned earlier, the stuff that our team had control over, we actually had a reduction of a little over $7,000 but some of those IT and facilities things added to the overall, and then as well as, some of those contractual drivers. We have some young staff members who are getting married and having babies, and, those insurance drivers, increase things as we move forward. You can go ahead to the next one, Steve, thank you. So our enrollment, this is kind of tricky, especially after what happened this past summer with our first grade class. So I think last year we had projected a similar number. I think we were projected to be around 113, 114 kids in first grade this year. And they kind of blew us out of the water. And we're coming in with 134 kids. That's our largest class in the school. And so, we worked with Wendy and Brian and our team to kind of move some staffing around so that we could keep those class size numbers down the best that we could. And we'll take a look at those, how that kind of shakes out in the next slide. But, we did our best to predict where we'll be at next year, knowing that Kathy's numbers at Glen Lake are a little bit lower. We projected a little bit lower, but I think there's some, where we don't have a full kindergarten program. As we know, it's difficult to try to predict because we know that there's some kids in town who are in kindergarten, but we don't know of them yet. So that's always kind of a moving target for us. But overall, it looks like we'll be, if our predictions are close, about 10 students less than we are this year. My gut tells me, based on our enrollment last summer, we'll probably be closer to about the same, that 500 mark, give or take a few kids. For projected class size, so what we're going to do is, if things shake out, we had to add that seventh teacher. We kind of borrowed from fourth grade, brought them down to first grade to have 7 classrooms down there to keep our class sizes around 20. Otherwise, those first grade classes probably would have been closer to about 24. But if our first grade class next year is smaller, or is at least close to what we project, we'll go back to our 6 teachers there, and we'll have a class size of 19.8. Second grade class, that big bubble that's coming through, we would add a 7th teacher to that group to keep the class sizes at that around that 19 point. And then our third grade class is our smallest group, which is where we would go with our 5 teachers there. And that puts us at 22.6. And then in fourth grade, we'd go back to 6 teachers there and having 22.2. So overall, our average class size would be 20.5, which is not terrible. I'd like first and second grade to be a bit lower than they are, but it is what it is. Our current staffing, so it's pretty much same as last year. I think we have a couple extra paraprofessionals that we had last year due to some students who moved in over the summer that came in with IEPs and required paraprofessional services. And so we had to add a couple extras there. But other than that, we're expecting to keep our staffing the same for next year, depending on what, comes up from those kind of kindergarten programs we don't know about, and any potential move-ins that happen. As we know, we get an IEP that mandates specific staffing, we got to make that work. So we always do our best to accommodate those. Noteworthy changes, the big one for us is the books and printed materials. So from what I understand, years ago, there was a move to bolster some money there. Stephen, you can go on to the next. There you go. There was a move to bolster some money there to help build some classroom libraries for students to be able to access in the classroom, as well as offer differentiated reading materials like decodables to help teachers do their small group instruction as kids work through their literacy program. And so now that we've kind of built those things up, now we can start decreasing the money that's in that budget line because we don't need that full amount anymore. And as we mentioned earlier, right, some of those IT and facility things there are increasing. And then part of what we did too from that $9,938 decrease from the books and printed materials, we took $2,000 of that, and what we would like to do is working with Doug to create a line for our fourth grade show chorus, Because right now, when families come to see that performance, we're charging a fee because we have to buy licenses for the music and the costumes and the scripts and all that sort of stuff. So if we can just shift that $2,000 in there, then we would not have to charge families at all when they come to that performance, which is a nice perk for the families. And also, it's always, tricky when you're dealing with, that amount of cash, at any sort of performance, and especially where we're off-site, because we're here using the high school facility. It makes me nervous to have that much cash sitting around. So I would love to be able to just fund that out of that decrease, so that we can make that performance easier for everybody, and again, at no cost for the families.
Which would be my preference.
Thank you. Rumor has it was Mrs. Kohler's idea, but I want to take credit for it.
They're all Mrs. Kohler's idea.
Anybody have questions, comments? Or Maple Avenue? No? Wow. All right.
Perfect.
Great.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so we will pause it there. So at our meeting on Wednesday, we will begin with the middle school presentation, and then we'll get directly into the high school presentation. And we might have time, I would think, to start doing a line-by-line review, depending on how much time the board would like to spend on Wednesday evening. But I would think that we'd be prepared to do that. And if the board does not object, everyone who presented this evening, I will not have them come back on Wednesday. And they likely will not be back before the board unless there are questions, but they would be then presenting at the 2 evenings when we present to the budget committee.
Can they have the day off tomorrow?
No, we've got schools to run, unfortunately. Yeah.
All right, so we're just going to finish up. So do we have 3 things for tonight?
The trip to,
Oh, yeah, the trip.
I'll just say Canada because I don't want to say it wrong. I'll work on it.
Yeah.
She's been working on me for a long
All
time.
right, so the trip.
I also like the 4 new classes
Yep.
for high school.
That's a
Next
good
year.
one.
Yeah,
that's a
Good call.
Yeah.
And then how about budget
And budget
presentations?
presentations. Did you get that?
Yeah, so are we gonna do this again on Wednesday?
Top 3?
Yeah.
Probably not.
I would just
Because it
roll
would
in
just
the
be-
budgets.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I
This is
thought
just
maybe
gonna
you
be budgets
mentioned that
Wednesday.
it will, in the little blurb, just say additional presentations on Wednesday. I'll try to get it out by Wednesday.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, so trip to Canada, the 4 new classes, and the budget presentation. Did you get all that ready?
Yeah.
All right. Is there any other business that may come before the meeting? Seeing none, we do have 2 quick non-publics. Which one do you want to go into?
So let's
They're
go
both-
under 91A32A, under
Okay.
compensation to begin with.
All right, so I'll need a motion.
So moved.
By Caroline. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Who seconded, Retta? All right, roll call.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. All right, so we are in non-public. We can head down.
Yep.